and Zoning Conference for February 5th. So if you can let her know if you're interested in attending, she'll get the registrations moving on that. And remember that you can get all your continuing education credits, the 4 credits you need for the year, in that one day. The first order of business is the approval of our September regular board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Milton Planning Board minutes of our October 9th, 2024 regular monthly meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I'll
Second.
Is there any discussions or changes to those minutes? There being none, please poll the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Marin?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Milton Planning Board special meeting held on October 21st, 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion or changes to those minutes? There being none, please poll the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
I'll abstain. I wasn't present.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Marin?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. All right, at this point, we'll open the meeting for public comment. Please note that we will have 2 public hearings this evening, one for the site plan and special use permit for a cell tower at 939 Rock City Road, and the second, a site plan for the mixed-use development at Milltown Center. So if you have comments on those projects, if you could wait till we have the hearing open, you'd be on the record. We continue to have both virtual and in-person opportunities, so I'd ask if you're zooming in with us and want to make a comment, please use the hand wave feature. I'd also ask all the commenters to limit their comments to 3 minutes and to try to avoid redundant comments. If you have written comments, please summarize them. And if you'd like to leave a copy with us, you can leave them and we will share them. I'll open the meeting to public comment at 7:04 p.m. Would anyone like to address the board? You can just introduce your name and address.
Tom Denoyer, 18 Encore, 80 Rowland, and 82 Rowland. Amanda, if you could bring up the handout there. So basically, I'm here to speak about the Doubleday mixed-use project. And we'll wait till Amanda gets up the handout here. So basically, I just wanted to, before they make their presentation on that, this is the reality of what this project is going to look like. And for the bottom line of 3 minutes, I won't talk too much about it other than it kind of explains itself. That's the scale of what's going on. And that building is going to be 90 feet off the back of 22 and 20, 50 feet from the property line, an 11-foot cliff. And they're proposing on the owner's property to put 25-foot arborvitaes, which very rarely, I mean, I don't know how the people are going to maintain those, and they're going to have to be like magic beans to grow to 25 feet. But anyhow, I just wanted to lay out that's a reality of what's going on with that project. And then if you could move to the Rowland with ponds. So right here, since the last meeting, I now own 80 Rowland and 82 Rowland. And now that I've had time to spend time on this property, there's a problem, and I've talked to the new town planner, and I'm going to be meeting with one of the departments. She hasn't figured it out, but there's a lot of runoff that's coming from the new development. And I've got video that I'll play in the end where it actually shows like it's flooding this back corner. So all this water is running into this area. And then the proposal is to give it 15 feet and then cut it off. And when you see how this water runs, it's crazy. And then these 2 ponds, which are actually, those were designed to feed the water to Falston Spa. Those were the reservoirs. So these are spring fed, you know, like Saratoga Springs. The water runs constantly in like 8-foot pipes from that pond through to the next pond and out. So it runs all day long, 24/7 for the last 200 years when that was put in. So there's enough moving water every day that supplied that whole town. So that, and there's springs all over this side of that property, and it all flows this way, right to this little corner. So, you know, it's a problem. And then since then, there's been swales put in to deal with the stormwater coming off of this area back to that area. So go ahead and show the video. And obviously in the future, we're going to get into this more, but this is the reality of what this is. So this is from behind my son's house. The pond is over here facing this way, and it's all running to the back corner of that property. And it's like that when it rains. It's just wet property. It's always been the reason that when they sold it to the homeowners and charged a premium of up to $30,000 to border wetlands is because it's wetlands. So that's just to keep it with 3 minutes. There's just more to come on this thing. But, you know, again, now that I own this property, the bottom line is even if they weren't building this thing, this other development is now flooding my property and that water's all flowing. Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. That was a Rowland with ponds video. So basically, where we're taking the video is right here. Facing this way. And I sent Amanda like a lot more videos and she's like, whoa, you've got 3 minutes. She's like, so ease up. So I have a lot more, to get into, but not tonight because I don't want to. Oh, my last piece of it is that I wanted to thank the board and the town engineer because when I'm reading the letters, obviously I see your concerns too with the no buffer. This is just a crazy deal. And then on top of it, now that I own this property and really see what's going on, it only got worse. But I do appreciate the support because I see the board is looking at what we're looking at. Anyhow, probably over 3. Bye. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Please come on up. Just your name and address.
Do have handouts.
Okay.
John Quinn, live on 20 Encore Drive. So I'm here to talk about the mixed-use Doubleday Avenue project as well. A quick recap. We've already made numerous points about the non-compliance with some of the town codes, things like incompatibility between proposed apartments in the surrounding areas, lack of privacy and landscape buffer between the existing neighbors and the proposed area, and impact to existing home values. It also does not follow the guidelines set forth by the Route 50 corridor study to represent what the look and feel that the town wants for the Route 50 corridor. For example, buildings that don't go more than 2 to 3 stories, mixed-use development, businesses on the first floor, and residential buildings, residential apartments, second and third floors, to support pedestrian traffic. And there's really no other 4-story apartments anywhere within this area that is so close to other R1 residential parcels. Now, regarding the site plan, it's clear that it really hasn't been updated, and it does nothing to address the concerns that we put forth about the site plan, aside from suggesting that it's a neighbor's responsibility to protect their own privacy. So, Section 180-53, subsection A, paragraph 7, says that there should be a visual and/or noise deterring buffer between the applicants and adjoining lands, including maximum retention of existing landscape. So I called a local landscaping company, and based on the proposal of 18 of these arborvitaes, it would be $8,000 to simply purchase the trees on top of the maintenance and the watering for the trees. Arborvitae trees they're not boxes, right? So they're cones. And our concern isn't so much that people, that our children, when they're on their lawn, they're not going to be looked at by people within the apartments. More so, our concern is that in the second and third floor, the first and second floors, people can look directly into our living rooms. People can look directly into our children's rooms. So that is more so the concern that we have. We provided sightlines in, I think, the second picture that more clearly indicates what our concern is regarding privacy. And it's also really impossible to tell whether there's going to be optimal growing conditions. Mr. Denori already mentioned, are these really going to grow 40 feet, which is what they suggest the mature size will be? Are they going to be as wide as they plan to be? An additional concern is that, the same developer proposed trees and landscape areas between new houses in the Iron Springs development on Jennifer and existing houses on Birchwood. But if you were to drive down that, and I put a screenshot of that as well, if you were to drive down Jennifer and you look at where they cleared the trees on Jennifer and existing neighbors, there's no trees that were planted there. So it's just open between the new developments and the existing neighbors.
We're reaching your time limit, Mr. Quinn.
Okay. Chairman Barto, we already requested that there's 40 feet setback on property lines, a visual that wasn't shown. We're concerned about sunlight and shadow casting analysis that hasn't been done. So ultimately, there's a clear lack of consideration for existing neighbors of the property, but also existing lack of consideration for future tenants. There's no green space, there's no amenities, and it's based on their site plan, they continue to have drive-throughs on the site. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please come up, ma'am.
Maureen Cleary, 22 Encore. John covered a lot of what I was going to say. We live next door to John. When we bought our property back in July of 22, we were assured that no buildings would be put behind us, that it was conservation areas and wetlands. And we paid a premium fee for our lot because of that. The board was kind enough and concerned enough to walk our property and feel the impact of it two four-story buildings. They don't belong there, right behind our homes. Our property value will drop. The quality of our life and our privacy will be very much affected. If you drive down Doubleday, there are no four-story buildings. They just don't belong there. The developer initially was going to do a 5-foot setback, although I think the town requires 15 feet. We have asked for a 40-foot setback. Also, we'd like two-story building or no-story building. And the newest drawings depict trees on our property, taking up more of my property, and then we will be responsible to maintain these trees. That's not what they initially said they would be doing. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Anybody on the Zoom?
No hands.
Let's call for public comment. Okay, if not, I will close the public comment period at 7:15 p.m. Okay, moving on. Our first project this evening is 939 Rock City Road, cellular tower for special use and site plan approval. If you recall at our September meeting, we scheduled a public hearing on this project conditioned on receiving the County 239 referral comments, which we did receive. Is the applicant here to bring us up to speed on any changes?
Good evening, Attorney Hyde Clark with Young Summer here on behalf of the applicant. Was here in September to give a full review of our application materials, just to update the board on additional materials that have been provided to the planning board and to the planning consultant. One question was about the height of the facility. If the board recalls, this is a 120-foot tower, 124 feet when you include the 4-foot lightning rod. Question from the board was, can this facility go up to 150 feet, which is allowed per the zoning code? What we did provide from our RF engineer who's here tonight Rick Andrus, is coverage plots to show you the difference between that 120 and that 150. Again, it's not a big difference of improved coverage from that increased height. The town zoning code also requires that we, as the applicant, construct that facility to the minimum height necessary to provide coverage. We feel that that increase to go up in that height doesn't correspond in a better coverage being provided. So in our letter, what we did do was provide that if the board would like, we would construct the facility with a flange, which would allow a taller height in the future if it became apparent that a future co-locator needed to be at a taller height, or if for some reason there was that need, that the facility would be constructed to be able to go up that additional 30 feet. So that is something that we offered the board. Another comment from the consultant was that they were looking for a tower estimate, tower removal estimate. So what we did provide was details as to that cost. That's been included in your materials as well. That's estimated at $70,000 and has been reviewed by the town. The final thing was that one board member did request that we provide notice to Saratoga County Airport about the installation, which we also provided. So that's the update from our last meeting, and certainly can answer any questions if we have comments from the public or if the board has questions.
Sure, I was going to do our seeker completion first, but if you got questions, let's do some now. No, go ahead. Go ahead if you got questions.
No, hang on, I got to turn it on. I appreciate you doing the 150-foot look. The challenges, I think you picked colors that were extremely analogous, which makes it more difficult. But if you could step me through, there's key roads that are in that area. You have Paisley that comes up, and then you have Atomic Project Road. And if you could show me, because I think it actually improves in those areas, and then on Geyser connection across Middle Line into the hookup to the county cell tower, I think it improves there as well, which ensures that there's a connection from one cell tower to the next. Can you tell me whether I'm reading your map wrong and where the roads are? If you could show that, and then how that goes through, and if you could describe the traffic levels and the people that go there, and whether that's better for the community or worse, that would be helpful for me to understand the delta. Because you're saying it's not necessary, and when I look at it, I'm having a little difficulty because of the way the picture's put together of where the roads are in relationship to your coverage map.
Yep. So I'm going to ask Rick Andrus to come up tonight just because he did prepare the map. So he's right here. If you can, Amanda, thank you for pulling that up.
Sure. I'm not 100% familiar with the specific roads that you're speaking of. But so what I did on this overlay, so I see your point. It is very difficult to
Well,
see.
they're extremely analogous colors, so it's very difficult to see. But if you highlight where the colors are, if you go to your western part that extends, that actually covers the road going into the nuclear facility. And then if you go to the other side, where it's connecting more to where the one is off the other property, that's where Geyser Road is.
I'm sorry, that's this section here.
Yep. So what it's actually doing is connecting those more together when you're at 150 feet. And it's actually coming down more on Paisley, unless I misunderstand your colors.
No, you're correct. So I don't know how to explain it. The brighter green is the coverage that we're proposing from 120. And then there's more like an army colored green, which I apologize. In looking at this, it's definitely much more harder to tell than I could see on my computer screen. But, so what I did was zoom into these areas, and this area in particular was kind of the most significant area, and it's just mostly trees there. I don't think there was a single house or a road or whatever.
Yeah, I understand that. That's not the area where I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I'm looking at
Yeah, this area.
I'm looking at where Geyser Road comes in, and I'm looking at where the nuclear facility is coming in. Because remember, there's approximately 2,000 people that go that way every day and then go home. And then they come back down Paisley or through the bridge that's out, which you cover well, and then they come back over to Geyser Road.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not trying to oversell that, 120 feet. But so, the one thing to point out is this, the signal strength level at the minus 195 or minus 95.
I was gonna get into signal strength and
Yeah, so that's
second.
intended to mean that, that's the signal outside, right? So if you're within a home, that allows a buffer for the signal to penetrate into a home. So the level that we typically use for like in a car is more in the minus 105-ish range. So there would still be signal there for into a vehicle, but the intent was to show the coverage that's,
In a house.
allows the buffer to get into a home.
I was gonna get into that, but we're not gonna create many more homes in that area. We're gonna have cars running in there.
Correct.
So what I was gonna talk to you about is, I'm not sure you represented it right for what we expect there, which is a car, not a house.
Yeah, so that would be, again, a higher signal level. meaning-
Right, which would mean it would go further.
Correct.
Right, so you would connect them better at 150.
Right. Well, I mean, if I ran the plot at 150, right, you would see a significant expansion in coverage, and it would show a solid connection between the two for an in-vehicle level of coverage. Right, because it takes much less power to get in, through the windows of a vehicle than it does into a home, where you're
And-
penetrating walls and.
And that's what we have there. Because we're not gonna, it is unlikely that area is gonna grow much more when the federal government owns a significant piece of that area. And then the other ones are owned by large parcel owners that are probably not gonna split them off anytime soon. So the development that's happened in there is pretty much gonna happen. So what you're really worried about in serving this area is the vehicles going through and the houses that are there. You've shown your cover in that. What I'm trying to cover are the vehicles.
Yeah, and we can certainly provide an additional plot that would show you at the signal level, that would give you ample power to reach into homes, which again, you would see a significantly expanded coverage blob, if you will.
Right.
So we can certainly provide that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So with respect to the height, your original application came in at 120 and you're placing the Verizon array at 120, correct?
It's 115 because the antennas are 8 feet tall,
Okay.
right? So
But
you have the top of
you
the-
then suggested that you're gonna put some hinge mechanism in that would allow the tower to be extended that extra 30 feet to 150, but that wouldn't move the Verizon array. That would be some next carrier, correct?
Right. Typically what happens is they would have to show you that they would get significant coverage improvement by going above Verizon versus below Verizon.
Well, your plot would have shown you're doing it, Verizon's at the 150, not at Verizon's at the 120.
Right, on the comparison plot, one.
Right. One was at 150, so you do it at the 150 level. You wouldn't put it, if you built a 150 tower, you wouldn't purposely put it at 120 just,
But the question was about the flange, so that doesn't extend out.
So they're not planning to build it at 150 at all, John.
right, but what I
Verizon's never gonna go
what I
there.
want him to do is to show me what it looks like in a car, which is what we have to build it for.
Sure, yeah, I can certainly do that, yeah.
Because that would meet what the intent is for that area.
But you want that at 120.
No, at
No,
150.
because they're not proposing to put the Verizon array at anything higher than 120.
Yeah, I would show you both.
Right.
I just
Okay.
run the similar plot showing the one overlaid on top, better colors, obviously, so that you can actually see what.
Right, let me just clarify. If the tower was at 150, would Verizon purposely choose to put it at 120 or would they put it at 150?
No, if we built the tower to 150 out of the gate,
Right,
right, then we would obviously put the antenna staller.
at 150.
But I believe the question was, which, the intent was to build it at 120, but we propose the ability to raise it to 150. Should, say AT&T or T-Mobile come around, they would come in and say, well, we want to raise the tower. The tower is built to support that. Then they would have to show you, why can't, is 105 every bit as good as 135, for example, right? So do you really need to raise the tower, or can you just put your equipment below Verizon?
Right, what I'm trying to look at is what the necessity is out there. And the necessity isn't to increase for great developments that going in there. It's for the traffic and the people that are going through there, trying to go back and forth between the facility.
No, I completely understand. What
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I certainly provide that.
But just to that point as well, what we've provided at the minus 95, if we show that minus 105 at 120, I think it's going to hit some of those areas, which I know that's what you're looking to ask for. But
You can.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't have any problem with you showing the other one and seeing what that looks like. Because that was what I was hoping you would show, which is the difference is you can always show at the minus 105 and you can show what they'll look like up at the top. And I would appreciate if if the colors weren't so analogous that it makes it difficult. And if the roads were clearer on the map so that we could see it.
Yeah, I could certainly blow into those,
Yeah.
those specific areas that you're referencing, so you can see what's there, right? I can also put it on like an aerial.
So I guess my question is though, we have an application before us for 120 feet. They've written a letter that says, well, we could put a hinge in case somebody else wants to raise it to 150. Are you suggesting it should be 150 out of the gate
150 out of the gate.
to get more cars?
Well, they need to show us what it looks like in the car,
Okay.
because they only showed it for what it is inside a home.
Okay, and then I guess I would ask the applicant if they're prepared to amend their application to do a 150 tower.
I mean, from the request, we would show the new coverage plots, and I would think based on those new coverage plots, it'll show that the 120 is sufficient. I mean, we stand by the fact that this is the minimum height necessary to construct this tower. I don't think we're at the point where we're saying we're going to construct to 150 feet. I think
I
the
think
board
we're gonna
member's
look
just
at it.
asking to look at it.
And see.
But we'll have a whole different set of visual impacts as well.
I don't know if you'll see it that much more at 150, because they've already said it wouldn't really be seen at 150. So we'll
Right.
see though.
I don't know that I can do the environmental assessment until we know which height we're going to be focused on.
Yeah, probably. We might have to wait.
All right. Okay. Any other questions from the board at this point? Yep.
This might be a dumb question, but can you equate minus 95 dBm to number of bars on my cell phone? It'd be easier for me to understand what minus 95 means.
Unfortunately, those bars are just kind of a worthless, meaningless. Yeah, it's strictly the amount of power that your phone sees, right? It's not, it doesn't equate to quality of service or, whether you have good service or not. Like, no, it does not equate. Like, so, because you could be in an area in the Adirondack Park where there's absolutely nothing around. There's no RF signals. We put a site up and you can carry the call for, literally 0 bars on your phone, and you can carry a call forever because there's no interference whatsoever. But if you go in a city, you can have 5 bars on your phone and still have absolutely horrendous coverage because there's so much interference and other RF in the air. So, and that's all. It's just a measurement of what your phone is seeing power-wise in that band.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
You want to delay this because they might build something in the future, rather than what is before us at 120?
No, my question is simply, what they're saying is for the need, right? The need is to serve the community that's there. What they're saying is that they're trying to build it just for the house. What I'm saying is that the community that's there are the people that are traveling through that area that would want cell coverage that goes all the way down Geyser, all the way through Rock City Falls, all the way over to the site.
Has the
And then-
applicant, have you thought about that at all? Cars?
Maybe I misspoke or was misunderstood. So the coverage levels shown on the plots are to allow for enough signal to reach into homes.
Right.
So when I run a plot from the 120-foot tower at 105, which is appropriate for an in-vehicle, it's going to expand significantly. Obviously, when it's a mountain, it's going to stop no matter how tall we go. But if it's a generally flat area, it's going to puff that coverage cloud out a lot. So what you're going to see is it'll be solid connection on those roads that you're speaking of at that signal level from 120 foot. It'll, expand to some degree at 150 foot, but, in our opinion, for the extra cost and redo all the engineering and all that, it's very little benefit for all the extra effort involved, I guess.
I would just
So,
accept what the applicant wants and thinks the applicant needs, and that's what they requested it being built.
Well, and just with cell phone towers in general and going to a number of these meetings every week, it's, we are concerned about those neighboring properties where we are constructing that tower. So it is a bit different to be put in a spot to say, go taller when it could potentially have, more of a visual impact. So I think that's just, we're trying to look at it holistically from the local zoning code as everything that goes into designing a site. So yes, need is important. That's, what we're in the business of doing. And we have our RF engineer saying that this is going to provide that service. I can appreciate wanting to see those maps, but I wouldn't say that we're in a position where we're saying we're going to construct it an additional 30 feet based on our experts who have looked at it. So.
Any other comments, questions from the board? So we have a hearing scheduled tonight. So we can open it, but we're going to have to adjourn it because we will not have completed the environmental assessment or seen that expanded RF coverage.
Yeah. It is, not to put everybody on the spot, but that's the consensus of the board. I mean, we're certainly willing to provide it, but it would just be good to hear from the rest of the board.
You'd like to see the expanded RF? Sure. Others?
I think if they apply for 120 feet, that's what we should look at.
I'm with them. If this is what they provided before us, I just don't.
Okay.
I don't see the need for a higher power.
I mean, I would like to hear from the public if there are people here too, just to have a sense of if there are comments as to what is proposed currently. So.
Okay.
So you can open it.
But it's have 62 days.
Hmm?
If you open it.
No, I'd just adjourn it. I don't
Yeah.
close it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chairman Martel, may I make a comment?
Sure.
Microphone.
Yeah. Where is it?
I guess we'll.
Good evening. This is Sophia Maruso of Plan and Site Consulting. I just wanted to weigh in here. We had provided a planning review for this application as the applicant had proposed the project at 120 feet height for the tower, obviously 124 with the antenna. And during our review, we had to look through very specific criteria in the town code. We had to contemplate a number of different code sections. There was a particular section that pertained to telecommunications towers and satellites. And one of the conditions that is requested of the planning board is to consider minimizing to the degree possible the impact that a tower might have on a neighborhood. In order to fully evaluate that very specific type of impact, the applicant has provided a very detailed visual resource evaluation and visual assessment form, which is another environmental, basically assessment form intended to cover this kind of discussion where we're assessing the impact to the adjacent community. So the only thing that I would like to add is that the applicant has done what you had requested, which is to provide the correspondence showing the differential in the service area with the increased height. They've also provided us with the estimate for site restoration and demolition, which our engineers reviewed and vetted as being accurate and feasible. And again, the applicant has provided with us a tower that is the greatest functionality at the lowest height possible, and that is requested specifically in our town code. So I just encourage the board to be considering that. That is a very specific piece of criteria that you need to contemplate when looking at these towers, is to what degree can you minimize the visual impact and height of a tower while accomplishing that service and coverage that the provider is seeking.
I agree.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we take a poll of the board. Who wants to move the project this evening at the 120 feet, or do you want to wait until we see a more detailed coverage analysis at 150 feet and an automobile specific? So with that, Amanda, I'd like to poll the board. I'll ask for a motion to proceed with the project as presented to us this evening, with the appropriate impact analysis that can be done.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that though, just so everybody's on the same page. I mean, Mr. Clark has put in a letter of October 30, and I want to make sure the board's focused on what was said in it. That, and I quote, to the extent the planning board would like to explore the opportunity for the tower to be taller in the future, the applicant's willing to have the tower built with a flange so that it can be extendable to 150 feet if a future carrier requires additional height. So the crux of this is the board is desirous, as I understand it, of doing seeker. But the issue is, are you going to do seeker at 150 feet or 120
We
feet?
do 120.
Right.
120, and if somebody wants to come back and go to 130, 150, it's a new project.
I agree. I agree with that.
So Bernadette, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Chairman Bartow, can I just add something really quick?
Yep.
Just because I'm not sure that everybody's clear. So when you look at coverage at 120 feet in a house, you're going to get less coverage area than in a car.
Sure.
So at 120 feet, the coverage for cars is going to be bigger,
Yeah.
more space. It's going to reach more because you need less power.
Yeah.
So just so everybody understands.
You just didn't do it at that RF level.
Right.
Negative 104 or whatever it is you said it
Yeah.
would be for a car. Yeah, I think. Any further discussion? Please pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Ms. Padula,
What are we saying yes or no to?
Proceeding with the 120-foot thing as evaluated and presented in the original application.
I'll say no.
Ms. Van Denza,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
No, I don't think they fully evaluated the need.
Okay.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Marin,
Yes.
Chairman Bartow.
Yes, okay. So by motion of the board, we'll proceed with that, in which case I will do the full environmental assessment form questions. So I will read through the 18 questions of the FEAF and discuss the impacts. If the board member has a different impact assessment that they think should be there, let me know and we will discuss that further. First question, the impact on land. Will the proposed action involve the construction or physical alteration of land surfaces of the proposed site? I'm saying no. Second question, impact on geological features. Proposed action may result in a modification, destruction, or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. I'm saying no. Impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, streams, lakes, ponds, or rivers. Saying no. Question 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in the new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. I'm saying no. Impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. I'm saying no. Question 6, impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source. I'm saying no. Impact on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in the loss of flora or fauna. I'm saying no. Question 8, impacts on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. I'm saying no. Question 9, impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or are in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. I'm saying no. Impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. I'm saying no. Question 11, impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in the loss of recreational opportunities or reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. I'm saying no. Impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. We have none, so I'm saying no. Question 13, impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. I'm saying no. Impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. I'm saying no. Impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. I'm saying no. Impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. I'm suggesting no. Question 17, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with an adopted land use plan. I'm saying no. Consistency with community character. The proposed action is inconsistent with the existing community character. I'm saying no. Okay. Anybody have any changes to those questions or impact assessment? Okay. Having evaluated the potential environmental impacts of the proposed project and reviewed the supporting application documents, I'll entertain a motion for that this project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, a negative declaration is determined by the board, and the chair is authorized to complete and sign FEAF Part 3. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? There being none, please poll the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Ms. Beulah,
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Marin,
Yes.
Chairman Barto.
Yes. Okay. Now we have a public hearing on the proposed cellular tower. And I will open the public hearing at 7:45 PM. Is there anyone present that would like to comment on the special use permit or site plan for the tower? Please, if you come up, give your name.
Thank you. Good evening. Mike Iacolucci, 3 Encore Drive. Just a quick comment about the cell phone coverage. I think some of you are much more familiar with West Milton than I might be, but I've spent a fair amount of time at the Rock City Falls Firehouse, where there is virtually no cell phone coverage. And I couldn't quite follow the map that was shown up there earlier. So I just wanted to ask to be certain that this new cell phone tower will indeed provide coverage to that particular area, 2 homes. Thank you.
Yes, and I believe the RF map shows that it would reach those levels.
I don't think it reaches the fire.
You don't think it reaches the fire hall?
Not per this map.
Does anybody have a better analysis of the map?
That's why I wanted a better know.
Well, we can still get that. Does the applicant, are you guys looking up stuff on that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where the firehouse is.
It is right up here.
Yeah, so we may catch it at 105, but obviously not at I think it's behind
It's behind what?
the terrain, like a significant elevation rise
Okay,
plus trees. So
okay.
I would say that, there'll probably be some level of coverage outside, but unlikely inside.
Okay.
Usually when you see a sharp cutoff like that, it takes a lot of planning.
Okay. Somebody else had their hand up to make a comment, please, come up.
Yeah, I'm Tim Pettit at 877 Rock City Road, and I couldn't really tell on that picture where exactly is that tower going to be? And that's what I'd like to see.
It's right at 939 Rock City Road.
But it's a big area and it, according to the sheet I got, it's within 300 feet of my property. And I'd like to see where the tower is going to be set, if you have a picture of that.
We have a picture.
Where's Rock City? No. This is the bend. This is. Okay, so this is, the firehouse is over here. Coming around this way. And I'm here. Is the tower going? There's a storage building. Big storage. No, that's my house. I don't see the storage building. That's the storage building? Oh, okay, okay. So it's nowhere any close to me because I'm over here. I don't, that's why I couldn't understand saying 300 feet
It's all right.
property,
It's all right.
and that's.
Here's your questions.
From the property.
All right, is there anyone else that'd like to address the board on this project?
Thank you.
Anybody online?
No hands.
No hands? Okay, now do we have any continued discussion for the board? I mean, is anybody concerned that there's not going to be service in the building of the fire department at this time?
So, no, not, well, here's the question. So
Yep.
can someone point out to me on this one? Because the other one's too difficult to
I think
see,
our-
but we have other sets of these,
Yep.
these maps.
What map do you have pulled up?
What is this down here called? It's,
What tab number?
That's it now.
how to sit.
That's it.
Can you pull up tab 6 on the screen?
Unless this is something different.
She's pulling it up. Okay, what page do we got to get to for that?
You gotta go to page 9 to get the first map. There's others.
That one? Okay,
There's the fire department.
The fire department is over the Cateras Creek and up, just before where the stream goes, before the paper mill. So it's where that one green, approximately where the green dot is, if you have to go up to the top of the page.
Yeah, and you can see that this is the top of I don't want to say mountain, but a significant elevation rise, right? Because that blue coverage is coming from one of these faraway sites. So those are hitting the top of this hill that's down in the valley. So, I mean, if I ran a terrain profile from our proposed site to there, you would see this, the terrain go up and then back down, right? So the height here would need to be exceed the top of whatever the raise is in elevation plus the trees. So you're probably talking 300 feet, something to that extent. I mean, I would have to run the profile from one to the other, but we clearly need another site in this area. This site has no chance of doing that justice up in that area at a reasonable height anyway.
Even at 150 or something.
No, 150 is still not going to get there. No, because like I say, you can tell by the blue, right? So this coverage is most likely coming.
Can you talk into the microphone?
You can pull it out of the thing if you want to.
Yeah, so this blue coverage is coming from a site further away, and obviously it's hitting the top of some sort of terrain rise. Like I said, I don't want to call it a mountain, but a significant hill. So that's whatever distance site is hitting it, it's hitting the top of this hill at a stronger signal strength than our proposed site. So it just shows that there's something in the way between here and there. And again, if we drew the terrain profile line, it would show, very, very clearly that, what height that it truly would take, which, I would assume is going to be well over 200 feet.
Is that coverage map just Verizon service?
Yes.
So folks with T-Mobile or AT&T won't see this coverage?
Correct.
That's all separate. So somebody with T-Mobile or AT&T at the firehouse, no matter what we do here, isn't going to see any improvement.
Correct. Yeah, and I guess it's important to note too that, we're all typically on the same towers in an area, but we all operate with, different antennas. We have different objectives, pointing in different directions, different power levels on our equipment. So, a lot of times we'll hear, I'm in a certain area, I have great coverage, and we're all on the same towers, right? So.
But if you do look at the supplemental submission where we did run 150, you'll see that that area is not going to does not have coverage provided either, just from the question of 120 to 150.
Is that accurate? And you were asking for in-car, not in-building, though.
Well, which one will you say?
The one that you had pulled up originally.
Well, so
Oh,
yeah, just
yeah.
just from the question of 120
Because it
to
was
150, the fire department's still
not going to get.
not going to get it. Yeah, 150 is not sufficient.
Route 29 is not going to get it either.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
'cause
actually,
Fire department is up here.
yeah, the firehouse, at 150, the firehouse actually gets it because of the split in the coverage,
Where do you see that?
right here.
Where?
The green right here.
Scatterings?
No, that means you get coverage.
Can you pull up that newer map?
That's on his supplemental. If you go to the map with the supplemental, it'll show,
She's pulling it up.
you see how it's up, the green is up there? That's where the firehouse is.
But that's the same. There's not additional coverage up there from.
See, there's no coverage with that one. That's why it'd be cool if they were different, if they
No,
were,
it's still showing that, because you can see it in this one, the aerial. And you still see it there, it's very small, but.
yeah, the other one covers it though.
Well, if you want to see that coverage and you think we can ask for it and adjourn the hearing.
Sorry, what?
If you'd like to see the coverage at the vehicle and in the in-building, in the terrain more eliminated, we could ask for that and adjourn the hearing tonight and see that next month.
I honestly, sorry, I should use this. I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. If it's a geological interference, I honestly don't think it's gonna be that different. But if the board wants to do something else, I wouldn't fight it, but the two maps kind of look the same, honestly, if there's a difference in what you're saying.
Well, John, what do you think?
I think that the 150 map shows the different color, and I believe if we showed it in a color that's not so analogous, you'll see that it only reaches it because it has that more olive drab color, which is now up by where the firehouse is on the supplemental submission.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some discrepancy in modeling. I don't know how much faith I would put in one dot on a map, right?
Well, that's why I'm asking for a little better map.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
probably a better solution for that is to, get the fire department, not a repeater, but, I can't think of the name. E-Femto is the name of the piece of equipment that you plug in, assuming there's internet at the firehouse. You can plug this box into the firehouse, internet, assuming they have sufficient backhaul, and it'll provide cell service within the firehouse. And it'll leak outside,
Does
obviously.
anybody know if the firehouse has internet?
I have no idea.
I believe they do, John.
Okay.
But, I guess point being, to put one tiny little dot on the map, similar to, weather radar, right? I mean, there's always, there's a little bit of wiggle room there, so. I wouldn't want to say, oh, I guarantee you'll have, coverage at the firehouse.
But his other comment was they could get a lot more auto coverage.
Well, but again, if we do the similar comparison plot between the two heights, I mean, if it was, from our opinion, if it was going to be significantly better at 150, we would have asked for 150, right? We just didn't see the benefit of doing that. Given everything considered, trying to meet the setbacks and whatever. And typically, as Hyde alluded to, we usually go to these towns and just get hammered, and we're doing drone flies to show that we're, as minimal above the trees as we can get. So, we're very sensitive to height. And obviously trying to minimize the aesthetic impact on the community.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So if there's not a significant bang for the buck or worth fighting for, then, we don't bother.
Do we want to look for additional analysis?
I would like to see it, but made that.
No.
Okay.
I'm still puzzled. We're questioning an applicant who thinks that this is the plan they need for their business. They're not going to spend extra money for the fun of it. So that, why would we ask them to do something they're not applying for? They're not applying for the extra 30 feet.
Okay. All right, then, there's no other comment? Nobody's raised their hand? Nobody else has a comment at this point? Then there being no further public comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing at 8:01 PM.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? There being none, please pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Ms. Padula,
Yes.
Ms. Vandanza,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Marin,
Yes.
and Chairman Bartel.
Yes. Okay, so we did have one comment from our engineer on reviewing it on the decommissioning and the 3% accelerator. And did you get that information from her that she had sent? And do you have any questions or are you concerned about meeting that?
I don't believe I saw that, but okay, maybe it went to Dave, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we've seen escalators on similar applications. So what's the time period for the escalator?
Well, so specifically, there'd be a initial payment of $70,000 with a 3% escalator for, what was that, 20 years? 20 years, which brought it to 122,745 and 42 cents.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Okay. Okay. Then with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan for a cellular tower at 939 Rock City Road, subject to the decommissioning fee at 70,000 with a 3% accelerator over 20 years.
Make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jim Sicano. Any further discussion? There being none, please pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Ms. Padula,
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
I'll vote no because we didn't analyze the whole thing. In the case of a cell tower is a public service as well. They get special rights to put their cell towers in many locations where you can't put other things. They have special court cases that allow it. So that needs to also be considered in the allowance of public safety. Has to be considered as well, and that we didn't do that in this particular case, so that's why I vote no.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Marin,
Yes.
Chairman Bartel.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Next, our project is the continued review and opening of the public hearing on the site plan for Milltown Center. Mr. Danable, do you have anything to bring us up to speed? And Ms. Van Dietz is accusing herself? You get to come up. Sorry. It's a short cord, Joe. Somebody walked off with our other one.
Okay, hopefully that stays. There we go. Okay, good evening, Joe Danable with the Environmental Design Partnership. Here with Bill Warwick of Barton Partners, the project architects, as well as the multi-development team. Here in behalf to have a public hearing on the Milltown Center project. As the board is aware, we've been here, I can't even count the number of times over the past year and a half, 2 months. I think we started this January, February of 2023, gone through a quite a detailed analysis on multiple layers and levels of government within the town as well as the county, and even started looking into some of the state approvals associated with the project. I'd like to bring the board there has been no significant modifications to the overall site plan since this was last seen by the board and by the public. But I did just want to touch on some of the highlights of the project to make sure everybody is still on the same page with what is being proposed. Obviously, we know where the property is located. It's on the north end of Trieble Avenue. North is up on this map for everyone's orientation. Rowland Street, Geyser Road, the extension of Trieble Avenue to Park Avenue, looping around and connecting into Rowland Street once again on the north side. Project itself is a mixed-use project, 507 apartment units. There is roughly 42,000 square feet of commercial space located within 5 mixed-use buildings on the front portion of their site. And then there are 3 pad sites which will be subject to further site plan review by this board once tenants are established and the site construction has started. Overall site plan, pavement areas, underground parking under the buildings, street side parkings. We've worked with the town to recreate streetscapes, working with the town, the highway department, and the town board, looking at the different types of streets and how we are trying to enhance and create the traditional neighborhood designs within the town of Milton with parallel parking, street trees, street lights, sidewalks, wide sidewalks that extend to the front of the commercial buildings. Here, this is a view of the project from Rowland Street. What we're identifying is that a vegetative buffer will be installed between Rowland Street, the sidewalk, and the parking lot to help create a level of separation between Rowland Street and the parking lot. In addition to that, and not represented on this picture, located centrally in the parking lot, which would be right about in this area, to further create that streetscape and that presence along Rowland Street, the project identification sign and tenant sign will be placed in the center of that parking lot facing Rowland Street so that they will have the Town of Milton logos associated with it and the different shops and commercial areas that can be found within that community, identified on both the north and south commercial ends. We're also providing a wayfinding sign at the entrances to the community and community entrance signs, identifying something such as the residents of Milltown Center as you come into there. We are proposing a roundabout traffic circle within our community, within the community. We've identified a couple areas. One of them we looked at in Glen Street and Glens Falls and how they compare in size. We also looked at a spot in Latham. Again, I believe Chairman Bartow has visited that and seen how that operates there. And back to our preliminary site plan. We provided a site plan showing how the largest fire truck that would come to this site maneuvers in and out and around all the building, providing safe fire access to all of the properties, all of the buildings and residents of this community. Lighting plan, proposed light fixtures identified that are all dark sky compliant. We showed a coverage map. Very hard to read the numbers at this scale, but I think there was better maps provided, but identifying that we're not spilling light out off the property. We are proposing trash enclosures. They have been identified. There were some discrepancies on the labeling that has been fixed. We are proposing trash enclosures, a masonry structure on 3 sides with a gate in the front to hide the receptacles that are located within there. We provided a comprehensive sign plan throughout the community, stop signs, one-way signs, pedestrian crossing signs, crosswalks, everything of that nature throughout the community. One of the things that we did meet with Chairman Bartow and the planning department and the town designated engineer, looking at the phasing of the site. This is slightly different than we presented last time. I believe we presented a 4-phase project. When we met and went through the details and worked with multi-development, the site itself is going to be constructed in 3 phases. Phase 1 will be the south end of the site, 3 residential buildings, clubhouse, pool area, 2 of the mixed-use commercial buildings. We've set up the streets so that the first road, Trieble Avenue extension will be extended from Trieble Avenue to this traffic circle. And from the circle, we'll have a boulevard connecting out to Rowland Street. As part of phase 1, those are the elements that we'd be looking to dedicate to the town to begin maintenance of those streets. The third leg of the roundabout would remain private and be operated and maintained by the applicant as a driveway until we continue on to phase 2. As part of phase 1, we are doing a right-in, right-out access that ties into Trieble Avenue. We'd also be constructing a portion of the parking lot across the front of the mixed-use buildings. We will be clearing a large portion of what will be phase two at this time, as grading plans will go back and forth over the phases. This area of the site will have buildings going up it in part of phase two, but for phase one, it'll be a gravel lay down staging area for the construction, for all the trades to park and come in and work on these buildings as needed. Phase two, I think the primary change here is Trieble Avenue was going to be extended to a T intersection here and stopped. As part of phase two, we're going to extend Trieble Avenue to its intersection and complete the connection to the north on Trieble Avenue. That will complete all of the town roads needed for this project within the second phase of the project. We're going to construct the 3 mixed-use commercial buildings, some of the parking lot, again, however these pad sites come in are not per phase, they will come back to this board for additional site plan review as needed. We'll construct 2 more of the residential buildings and the detached garage. The construction pad area will move from here up into the northwest side of the site, which will sit there until phase 3 construction begins. Phase 3 will be the full construction of the park and the remainder of the residential buildings continuing out to Rowland Street. One of the things we have committed to is that all utilities within the right-of-way in whatever phase will be extended under the pavement and to the edge of the right-of-way prior to those roads being extended or dedicated to the town. We want to make sure that we're not going back and digging up roads that have been dedicated to the town, creating patches, anything like that. We want to minimize that to the greatest extent possible. And that's true for every one of the phases. By the time we do phase 2, extend the road to Park Avenue, all of the utilities that need to go within Park Avenue are going to be in place for future connections. Brief overview, I think we've seen this. This is a general interpretation of what we are looking to do in the park area. The north end of the west end. North is to the right on this map now. The west end of the site, we want to do a cleared understory, creating mature canopy over the forest with lawns below that for passive recreational uses. Have a mature treed dog park down next to Park Avenue. I think that is generally it. We've talked about the street sections, and I know those are just about modified and ready for voting by the town board. And from here, we get into some of the architectural slides, looking at the perspective views, and I'll turn it over to. Good job. I can keep going. Just looking at some of the architectural perspectives. This is looking up the boulevard at the clubhouse. This is the primary entrance to the site from Rowland Street. The terminal view, the vista, will be the community clubhouse. This is the streetscape on Trieble Avenue extension to the north. This is looking south back towards Mavis Tire and the Hannaford Plaza. This would be the traffic circle. We are trying to create a lively streetscape where we have areas in front of all of the commercial buildings for outdoor dining experiences, curbside or street side merchandise displays during the day. And obviously the parallel parking, street lights, and the connection, highly landscaped, anything like that, all of those elements. The buildings themselves, we have the residential buildings are a 4-story building. The first floor is an underground parking garage. We did all the parking garages to reduce the amount of impervious area on the site and not have sea parking everywhere. So we had put them under the building. We are looking at a 4-story building. This is a elevation of the mixed-use commercial building. These are 3-story buildings, 2-story apartments over commercial retail spaces. Again, on the front side of the site, closest to Rowland Street and on the east side of Trieble Avenue. We looked at some different variations, slight variations in the roof lines, colors, and materials of the building so we don't create a monoculture of buildings throughout the site. Looking here, an elevation of the community clubhouse. This is what would be looked at coming down the boulevard The roundabout would be sitting in front of that, different elevations of that center as well. So we get into traffic. Last slide. Now I'm stuck. No, it's not going there. We did do a comprehensive traffic analysis on the property, looking at the associated impacts of this project. The main mitigation associated with this is the extension of the center turning lane from its terminus right now, which is right near the Sunmark Credit Union. That turning lane is going to extend to the boulevard entrance and then taper just beyond that. Another necessary mitigation as a result of this project is the installation of a traffic light at the intersection of Rowland Street and Grand Avenue. That's generally it. There's been a lot of information. I was just looking today. I've received my 12th review memo from Mary Beth. We've got a significant amount of information on that. We have concluded seeker. That was done about a year ago, I think. At this time, we've completed seeker. And tonight we're going through. We want to get these plans finalized and get a vote on them either tonight or at the next meeting, and then move on and deal with our state agencies. And we'd like to be in construction in the ground with this project in 2025. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask our designated engineer, Mary Beth Biancani, to summarize some of her comments.
Good evening, everyone. So as Joe mentioned, Joe, I know you're having problems with your slides. Can you go back to the phasing plan just really quick? Because I want to have you point out a couple things that you went over with me. So when you're building out, the stuff that's light green is going to look like what? And the stuff that's dark green is going to look like what?
So the dark green areas are going to be treed vegetation untouched as they exist today. The light green areas, the vegetation will be cleared, they will be graded, and they will be seeded as lawn.
Okay, so the light green is grass. There you go. Okay, great. So we had a series of comments from the last meeting, and this was the culmination of the list of all of the comments. I think we had like 40 comments. There were a few minor remaining comments that have been addressed. They included, and you saw them here, the wayfinding, signage, material of construction, the dumpster locations and details. And Joe, do you want to really quick go to one of the plans and show everybody where the 3 dumpsters are? Because I know that was a question that folks had. There's 3 site dumpsters.
There are, the dumpsters are going to be located at this location. There'll be one here and then one in the middle of the parking lot over here. There may be more with future site plans that will be coming in, but those are the 3 primary ones proposed at this time.
And those are made to service the mixed-use development projects and residential.
And they may be
basically
substantial enough to service these
Depending what
buildings.
comes.
Restaurants are going to get into grease traps, and that may change.
So that question was answered. Folks may remember that there's a 24-inch pipe that leaves this site and crosses Rowland. We asked for a CCTV inspection of that pipe. We got that. If anybody's interested in seeing pictures of what the inside of a really old pipe looks like. The pipe's actually in really good shape. It just is compacted with materials, so it will be cleaned out because it's part of the stormwater plan. There was some just missing details with labels that have been filled in. Let's see. There was a comment regarding how in the phasing, the right in, right out will be connected back to the site, and the revised site plan addresses that. The right in, right out will be constructed as part of phase 1 and will connect back up to the extension of Trieble Avenue. So that was addressed. One of the things that will be happening, Joe and I had a conversation, he will be providing us with a conformed set. So after all of this is done, all of the details, all of the extra details, all of the phasing plan will actually go into one big site plan set so that you will know what you are approving. So there won't be any extra sheets of paper that people have to reference. That will all be in one place. I'm a big fan of that so that we don't have to worry about what was approved. There had been a longstanding question regarding the school districts because this land had multiple jurisdictions. The applicant provided documentation from both the school districts showing that they had clarified that issue and it is now all within one school district. We had requested some additional information on the planting schedule to show the mixture of plantings, in particular along that view that Joe just showed. There is an extremely detailed planting plan that is included within the site plan that shows that it is not a monoculture, that there's a variety of plantings, both in terms of their appearances, whether they're deciduous or evergreen, in terms of their size, growth, all of those kinds of things. So it's a very robust plan. And the overall utility plan just had a typo and that was corrected. Chairman, the only other topic, and I don't know how you want to discuss this, is the recreation requirement.
Yep.
Would you like me to go through my analysis?
Have they seen it yet?
You guys got my memo, yeah?
We got it.
Okay.
Yes, just the other day.
I wanted to make sure.
Okay, so folks may be aware that the town has a recreation requirement for projects of this nature, residential projects of this nature, and to the extent that the project does or does not provide recreational facilities on site, the town has a payment in lieu of that provision. In this case, this site is providing a substantial recreational requirement that is a combination of recreational facilities that are available for use of the residents who live here, and then some that are also public. This may not be an exhaustive list, but this is essentially a list of the recreational features that are provided. Again, there may be more that I missed. For the residents, there's an indoor lounge inside the community center, a yoga studio, weightlifting center, fitness center, game room, community room, outdoor pool with cabanas, outdoor grills and picnic areas, fire pits, and a private dog park. There's probably more, but at a minimum, that's what's available. In terms of recreational features on the site that would be used by residents and the public, bike racks and bike accommodations throughout the entire site, walking trails and sidewalks throughout the site, public open space and passive park, and an outdoor gathering area adjacent to the public open space, which could be used for farm markets, food trucks, or any of those types of things. And that's essentially that area where Trieble Avenue Extension hits Park Street. So in reviewing this, I'll just read what I wrote because it's a little easier than paraphrasing it. I said, while the project as proposed will provide recreational features that will lessen the burden on the town's recreational facilities, given the nature of the recreational facilities provided on the site and those provided by the town, residents of the proposed development will nevertheless utilize town recreational facilities in addition to those provided on the site. The town's recreational facilities that may be utilized by residents of the proposed project include but are not limited to hard surface courts such as basketball, tennis, pickleball, expansive walking trails, fishing access sites, historical sites, playgrounds, pavilions, and other features that exist in town parks. Given this balance of recreational facilities and features and potential demands, it is recommended that the planning board consider a reduction in the payment in lieu of recreational fees from $2,000 per unit to $1,500 per unit.
That was our proposal. Okay. Okay.
We obviously at that meeting.
We don't, you don't have to respond right now. We can talk about it. No, I mean, that's.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah. And we'll want to hear from the public too. So with that, Sophia, do you have anything else to add or you're fine? Okay. Then does the board have any questions they want to hear before we go to open to a public hearing?
Good to hear from them.
Okay. And if not, I will open the public hearing at 8:26 PM. Is there anyone that would like to address the board I will note again that we continue to have both virtual and in-person meetings, so if you're online, please put up the hand wave feature and let us know. I also ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes and try to avoid redundant comments. If you have a copy of your comments, leave them with us and we'll get them around. I want to remind commenters, this isn't really a Q&A period between the board and the public. This is a chance for the public to speak specifically to the site plan review standards and how this project does or does not meet it. So just try to stay focused on that. It's not going to be this dialogue. We spent 2 months going through extensive question and answer periods on this. So I think we've beat that horse. So with that, does anybody choose to address the board? Ma'am, please come up, introduce yourself.
Really quick question. Which school district is the project now in? Saratoga or Boston Spa?
Boston Spa.
Thank you.
Question was which school district it is in. It's in the Boston Spa School District, 100%. Anyone else from the public like to make a comment at this point?
Yes. Excellent.
You have somebody online? Please let them come on.
Michelle, can you unmute?
Yes, thank you. Hi, it's Michelle Judah, and I agree, we've talked a lot about this. I've probably.
Can you start over again? We couldn't hear the beginning of that.
Sorry, it's Michelle Judah, and I just agree that we have talked a lot about this. So I just want to ask one question that I've probably just lost sight of, and Mary Beth asked most of it when she was clarifying about the light green areas and the dark green areas. So what things look like in between the phasing. We understand, you start with phase 1, you hope to get to phase 2 and 3, but plans could change. Part of the area will be gravel, right, for a setup for your equipment. So I just want to make sure that the plan that I'm sure ultimately ends up approved, accommodates for what's going to happen to that. If phase 2 doesn't happen or phase 3, will there be, some cleanup or something done to beautify that particular part of the project?
Okay. Good comment. Can you quickly pull those couple of slides up? I guess you're controlling them, right, Joe? Okay. So in there, you see the gravel obviously would be the staging area to the western portion of the parcel and the gravel for what will be a continuation of Trieble Avenue extension. We could consider conditioning the phasing plan that if that isn't dealt with in X period of time, say 3 or 5 years, that would be seeded over and left, that kind of thing. So that you wouldn't have a big gravel staging area that eventually had weeds starting coming up through it or whatever after a few years. And that would be the same at phase 3, because you had another staging area moved, right?
And I think that's a reasonable request. I definitely would like to work with the applicant on the timing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're built out in 5 years and everybody's moved in. We don't have a crystal ball to know.
Yeah.
how
But
fast.
a good comment. It's a pretty big gravel area that's just left there.
I would say this section will probably remain gravel as it will lead to the town's stormwater management
Yes.
area that's associated with it. So that probably would stay. This could be remedied.
Yeah. But a good comment, Michelle. Anybody else have comments? Anybody else online?
No other hands.
No other comments? Okay. So since we still need to get town board action on the streets and highways laws and the road dedication, those provisions, which we're reviewing later. We also need to get some final information on the water supply, and I think it's you've said you had a meeting last Monday, and it's fairly well addressed, but we need that. What more do we need on that?
Yeah, so we did. We had a very productive meeting here, representatives from multi-development, representatives from the village, including the village's engineer, the village mayor, town supervisor, myself. I don't think I'm missing anybody. We had a good discussion about the path forward for water supply for this project. I know Joe and I have exchanged some information. We need to continue doing that. We have a summary of that meeting that I think I owe you comments on. I feel comfortable that by our December meeting, we're going to have something to present to the board that, describes water supply.
Yep, and I think that's all we had outstanding. And then you
That's
said the
it.
final set of plans with some of these nuanced details that will come at us.
Yeah, the only other thing we talked about is, as Joe mentioned, obviously project has an extremely long history. For instance, the really beautiful renderings of the signage and things, right now they're detached from the site plans, right? They're figures
Yeah.
that came in as application material. So one of the things Joe and I talked about was to make, as we go forward, because this is a phased project, so as building applications come into the building department, having them have one set of conform plans that includes everything. So all of the landscaping's in there, all the signage, so that the building department's not hunting for the submission from September of 2023, trying to find whatever the details were.
Yep.
So Joe and I are going to work on getting a conformed set of plans. That's everything that is what the board has discussed and has been discussed in these meetings with respect to really meeting the site plan criteria.
Yep. So I'd say, if you got all that to us prepared for the December meeting, what we'd like to do is adjourn right now, since we've got to wait for a couple of details that we had. But if you get to them, then we'll see if there's any additional public comment between now and then. They'll continue to be able to add comments even in between the two meetings and at the December 11th meeting. And go from there.
Yeah, I guess I would just ask that, we've been at this for a while, the public comment period. There's been
Oh, yeah, lots of time for
probably
comment.
about 10
Yep.
different types of public comments, public hearings. Is there any way to close the public hearing tonight? There isn't really any outstanding issue that the public can comment on. Water supply, we do have two available options, both that have supported and provided full adequate water supply available for both domestic and fire use. And I think that's kind of one of the only issues out. And then the other issue out there is just taking all the information that's been put together and presented, which is available in a slew of documents, into one comprehensive plan. I guess I just don't understand the need to keep the public hearing open beyond this meeting.
I don't have any problem closing. It depends on what the other folks feel like.
You're okay?
As long as they'll waive the requirement for 62 days.
We're hoping to come back in December in 30 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
If for a
But
reason,
something could happen that you don't know of right now, right?
yeah, if for some reason we need to extend that come December, we can have that discussion then, but I don't see.
I'm
I don't see
okay
that.
with waiting. I just wanted to bring it up
Okay.
with everybody to talk about it. That way, when we bring it up next month, it's not a surprise.
Well, I think if we do close the hearing, then we would want to have you waive the 62-day requirement.
Yeah, is there I guess how long, there needs to be some time frame associated with that, so maybe then it might need to be left open. I don't want to have.
Well,
an
that
indefinite
was the
amount of
reason I
time.
was going to suggest just adjourning the hearing and we don't start the 62-day clock. But we can adjourn the hearing in December and still make a decision that day too.
Right.
That's where we're at.
Adjourn it. We'll just adjourn it and leave.
Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing for the site plan on Milltown Center to reconvene December 11th, 2024 at 7:05 PM.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
A second,
I'll second.
Jim Fry. Any discussion? There being none, please pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Miss Padula,
Yes.
Miss Van Danza. Oh, sorry.
She's abstaining.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Miss Marin,
Yes.
Miss Yelenik,
Yes.
Chairman Bartow.
Yes. Okay, so that's adjourned. Bernadette will rejoin us again, and you'll have to sit back down and get ready to come back up in a minute. All right, next we have 6,654 Middle Grove Road, the Austro Brothers Solar Farm, a special use permit extension request. If you recall, we approved the site plan for a special use permit and site plan on this project in April of 2021. Due to an estate settlement involving the applicants for this project, we've had several requests to extend the special use permit. The most recent extension request is to work out some easement agreements on the property so they can commence with installation. The most recent request for a 6-month extension was approved in May and expires on December 10th, 2024. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to grant a 6 months extension for the special use permit for the Austro Solar Farm at 6654 Middle Grove Road for 6 months from December 10th through June 10th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? Being none, please pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Ms. Padula,
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Marin,
Yes.
Chairman Bartow.
Yes. Next, we have the Cisar major subdivision at 272 Stone Church Road. Last month, we declared lead agency on this project. We have also referred the project along with our planner and town designated engineer comments to the county for their 239 referral, which should happen before we meet in December. Joe, do you have any updates for us at this time?
Good evening, Joe Danable, Environmental Design, here on behalf of Cisar Brothers Holding Company in their application for a 34 lot subdivision. Does work. So no major updates since the last time we presented. I think we covered a great deal of topics at that meeting. We provided some additional information to the town that was requested. We do want to request that the board set a public hearing for December pending a pending comments from Saratoga County under the 239 referral. At which time we're hoping to be able to conclude seeker at the December meeting and move the project forward. I think there was we're working through some details with Saratoga County DPW. Our traffic consultant during the 100-unit process identified that a 4-way stop would be needed at the intersections of Geyser and Stone Church Road. That was even a safety issue. Saratoga County did a separate study that said is not needed. We are working with our traffic engineer. We believe one may still be needed. However, we're in a particular spot where we'll put one in if it's needed. We'll not put one in if it's not needed, but ultimately it's the county that's got to approve the installation of those signs. So we're trying to work that out with county DPW.
Okay. Mary Beth, do you have some comments on this?
So good evening, everyone. Not a ton of comments on this. It's pretty straightforward. We've seen a version of this project before. So this is, we're looking at preliminary plat, right? So information regarding the site conditions is appropriate given the nature of the development of the project. All the street information is provided. The only thing that we did not have until I think very recently was a recommended street name. I think you provided several and the county got back and said that any of them would be fine from a 911 perspective. I know Sophia had some questions about lot layout. She'll cover that. Easement for the mail kiosk is shown. There are no other easements shown. The stormwater management feature access is provided via the proposed public road for the town, would be dedicated. preliminary construction and post-construction stormwater comments. There's just a couple of minor comments regarding dry wells, some design point things that I think are very minor, wouldn't substantially change any of these things. Preliminary water supply and sewage conveyance systems are shown and are sufficient. The one thing the code does require is a preliminary engineering report or narrative regarding water, sewer, wetlands, streams, highways, related systems. So a narrative would be useful on this project, but it's not, at this point, it's fine. The application does include a stormwater narrative and sufficient information regarding the wetlands and their delineation. The applicant does have will serve letters for water and sewer, but again, the town's code does request a brief engineering report or narrative regarding those. And then Joe mentioned the other issue is the intersection of Stone Church and Geyser. And I believe what we agreed to do is Joe's traffic engineer is going to do a little bit more work, and then we're going to set up a meeting with the county to have a conversation about that intersection. Because as Joe mentioned, we have competing analysis of that intersection. So I think it would be useful for us to have narrative regarding traffic impacts. But the application is certainly sufficient for 239 review by the county. There is, no major information missing from the application. The planning board certainly has, it could certainly look at seeker. The only real question is, would there be mitigation in terms of that four-way stop? That's really the only issue.
Okay. Sophia.
Sure. So I was asked to review this project for general compliance, and luckily Joe provided me with more details that give me a confident yes that this project as proposed does show compliance with not only the town comprehensive plan, but the zoning code itself. Just to reiterate, 33 new single-family homes proposed. And just to clarify, I know we've had like a couple different numbers. The stormwater management area is going to be its own parcel, right? That would be going with the roads when they're dedicated. And then the parcel to the west will remain separate and will entirely encompass those DC wetlands, correct? I know we kick around a lot of different quantities, and I just want to make sure. I think we've got all the land covered.
Well, it will be 34 building lots because the lot on the other side of the road will be considered a building lot.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I had a little confusion on that. So just to reiterate, so from a planning perspective, we wanted to look at this from a comprehensive plan perspective. The plan identifies the eastern portion of Milton as the appropriate setting for continued residential development. It's bolstered here by the location of neighboring developments and the availability of water and sewer infrastructure. The comprehensive plan also calls for the protection of natural resources as an integral aspect of subdivision design here. We do believe that the applicant is providing that, especially with the preservation of vegetation along Stone Church Road and between the adjacent developments that already exist on site. The applicant has provided a full SWIP that we will provide final review and engineering comments for at such time. The biggest question that came up from a technical aspect, I had a little confusion over the proposed lot dimensions and wasn't certain if we were totally conforming, and the representative gave us that very specific information, again, allowing me to confirm that, in fact, all the lots as proposed meet all the minimum and bulk requirements for R1 zoning. The one piece that I would encourage us to think about as we're going forward in this particular project review, there are just a few kind of pieces of details that we're looking for, the landscaping, street tree planting details. One of the things that came up during the course of the review and prior comments issued was that this project was in coordination with the Saratoga County Airport. And so one of the things that was indicated in the last correspondence from them was that this project appropriately avoids placing structures in the runway protection zone in the kind of 3 sub areas that they determine. But I do recommend that the planning board make a determination on the request for easements. And in this case, they're 3-dimensional easements within the approach surface to ensure that any physical or use restrictions associated with that zone are shown on the final plan set as well. Again, that's a little bit into the weeds, but we want to acknowledge the fact that part of this project was looking at the stormwater management area as potential county lands. And with that involvement and understanding that you had been coordinating with those agencies to understand what the clearing requirements were, we just think it would be prudent to incorporate notes or potentially an overlay or whatever it may be, recording that as part of the final plan set. So we can make sure that we're able to enforce that and regulate that as well.
Okay.
Provide that.
Perfect. No other major comments at this time.
Okay. Okay, assuming we can pull all this extra information and hear from the county, I'm ready to entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing on the Cisar major subdivision preliminary plat for December 11th, 2024 at 7:10 PM.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second,
I'll second.
any further discussion? There being none, please pull the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Dula,
Yes.
Ms. Van Danzo,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Marin,
Yes.
Chairman Bartel.
Yes. The only other thing I'd say is, Sophia, at one point, you and Joe should probably reach consensus on what's going to transpire between the preliminary plat and the final plat. You know, so long as we have, quote, substantial agreement between the preliminary and the final, we can waive a lot of things and whatnot, but there are a lot of engineering details, a lot of surety details, and figuring out costs and bonds or whatever it's got to be done. So if we could just kind of make sure everybody has that lined up, if he wants to keep moving on this, just so everybody's in sync of what the final plat has to have.
Certainly, we can have a meeting about that, and make sure we're providing everything that's needed. I know we looked to get through seeker and preliminary, and then we can deal with DEC. Maybe we'll be back in 2028.
Well, I don't even want to go there, but, because we've been extending preliminary plats like crazy. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next project is 10 Trieble Avenue, McDonald's special use permit and site plan. In August, we resolved that this is an unlisted action, and I wanted to note that since the board last saw this project, we've had several meetings with Steve Wilson, who's the representative for McDonald's on this project. On August 22nd, myself and John Olenek and Steve met to discuss the design and layout. On September 23rd, myself and John Olenek met to review the design submissions and queue up Sophia on the project. On December 17th, Steve Wilson, myself, John Olenek, and Sophia met to discuss the design and next submission requirements. And then on October 22nd, Sophia had a meeting with Steve to discuss the submission for this evening. Now, if Steve, you would just bring us up to speed on to where we're at. Good night.
Yes, good evening. Thanks. Steve Wilson again with Boulder on behalf of the applicant McDonald's. So last we saw you back in August, this was the site plan we had presented to you.
Yep.
With the building front to basically to the screen left, the drive-through around the back with driveways out to Trieble. And you sent us back to the drawing board. You said you didn't like that. Because we had our dumpster corral here, and this is kind of the entrance to the plaza, it's the front door. So I think we heard you. So we have essentially flipped the building 180 degrees here. So now the front of the building is now faces towards Dunkin' Donuts. Still have our driveways towards Trieble. We pulled the entire building towards Rowland. We sacrificed a handful of parking spaces, which I think we can live with. This still needs some cleanup. We were just working on this up till earlier today. So, but you get the flavor of it. And we also, and I'll get to the building architecture here in a minute. We're going to include, I guess you might call that a porte cochere, very similar to what Dunkin' Donuts have. Essentially, it's going to be a mirror image of the Dunkin' layout with the drive-through screen left the front of the building over here. And we'll work out some sidewalk connections and make sure we're connected all to the new sidewalks along the front. So I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that addresses a lot of the board's kind of big picture comments on the site plan orientation. Do I have that?
Yeah, the two big things that I want to make sure we can send you back with today. The first is, what is that town center frontage focus? Is it Rowland or is it Trieble? Is it whatnot? You're suggesting it now as Rowland. And then what architectural features,
That's right.
so the layouts. So those are the two
Yeah.
biggest things, because I know you haven't wanted to go into a lot of the other details until we were able to settle
Get these big picture
on
items
that.
out of the way, yeah.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, we're mirroring Dunkin' Donuts as a model here, you know, we got our drive-through right along the street. I mean, it's identical now to what Dunkin' is doing, so. And now we have our front door here, which lines up to the entrance to the plaza as well. So now, I guess slightly the harder part, I guess you could say, is the, architecture. Well, I only say that in that it's such opinion-based. It's not a technical issue. Everybody has a certain opinion of what they like. So last we saw you, this is what we had shown you. You said, you know, this isn't working. Take a deeper dive into the town center district, the town center code. And we had circulated this internally. Some of the staff had reviewed, standing seam metal roof, metal panels, a kind of mix of textures and materials, a brick watermark, hardy board siding, divided light windows, give it a very, I guess what I thought would be a unique look to a McDonald's that captured some of that, that town center flavor. You had, our feedback was the color, there's the other view, that's the drive-through side of the building, but it kind of carries those elements. And you can see here where we've added that overhang to the building to, again, connect it to the street, just the way Dunkin' Donuts is doing it. The feedback we got from this one was the color palette was wrong, it's too dark. It's not what we want here. So we took another stab at it, which, again, everybody's got their opinion. This was my favorite version, which lightens the color palette. The materials are the same, brick watermark, standing seam metal roof with the aluminum panels. Again, the divided light windows and the hardy board siding. And you can see that overhang again on the drive-through. This, if you're looking at, this would be Rowland Ave. Same view. This would be the front of the building as you drive into the plaza. This is what you'll see. So our feedback on that version was we're still missing the mark. So we came back to something more like this, that there was suggestion you need to incorporate more of kind of a gabled element into the design. So we came back with this. Streamlined some of the materials, provided that gable feature that runs across that porte cochere. Again, maintains that brick watermark with the hardy board siding. And I think this is kind of what we last left off when I had a Zoom call with Sophia that was very helpful. We were kind of going through town code and kind of deciding what was what. You know, we weren't getting clear direction, so that's when we said, let's come back to you as a board at whole, kind of look at all these things, maybe a little bit of a kind of a Chinese menu, what you like at some of these, and we'll see what we can do to kind of build, you know, a plan that kind of captures what everybody sees as the vision for this town code area, town center area. So I guess I'm interested in feedback on all those elevations and what you like or don't like, so we can kind of, like I said, we'll come back with something that maybe captures everything. I hope.
Can you go back to your site plan?
Sure.
Yep, go, it's your turn, it's your turn. This is.
The thing that concerns me the most that differs from the Dunkin' Donuts is it looks like most of your parking is not near the front of the building. Am I looking at that correctly?
Well, this is the front. Duncan
Right.
has a little bit different orientation on their building style, but here is where the dining room is. This is back of house, kitchen and such. So this is a front door and this is also a front door. So you're entering the dining room right here.
So there's something on the top of there's an entrance on the top?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is.
Okay, so that picks up a lot more
yeah.
parking areas.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the parking is on all three sides?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim?
Yes, what limitations do you have? Can you build anything, or the McDonald's is telling you this is a specific design that you have to follow? How could you have this much leeway?
Because they all kind of still fit within kind of McDonald's vision for the building, and also be honest, within the cost that the building can absorb. I mean, a lot of these are kind of material changes. The box, so to speak, the fit up of the building remains the same. So, yeah, I got some flexibility with materials and, architectural detailing, but that's, kind of about as far as I could get. So. I don't think I answered your question, did I?
Actually, you did. In other words, you couldn't build a KFC and just put McDonald's on it, right?
Does KFC have a great architectural design that I didn't see?
Do you mind just running through a couple of your different elevations? You showed some with some sort of a metal roof and some with a shingle roof, and if we could just see those various.
Yeah, so here's the standing seam metal roof, kind of a faux gable. Still, it's kind of serves as the screening of everything. So was one design.
And that side there would be facing Trieble?
Yeah, this is basically.
That's the
my
Trieble side,
parking
right?
lot, and you'd walk in here. This is kind of the front door that was facing, yes, exactly. Yep. And this would be facing Plaza Drive, I guess you call it. You drive in. That's right.
That side there. And do you have a picture of what the other side looks like?
Yes. Whoops. Wrong one, right here. There you go.
That's the third design, or is this the second one?
No, this is
Second design.
this is the companion one that I just showed you.
Yeah.
This is basically the Rowland Street side. So this is my drive-through would be facing the street.
And you had one that was similar to this, but you had a
gable kind of
gable going up halfway up, right?
That's it.
But you don't have the Rowland Street profile.
Yep.
Oh, you do?
That's it. This would be the back of the building. This would be facing the bank.
I might just speak boldly, since I think it's labeled in our files as the A version, the lighter roofing and stuff. I actually do like that. But I think overall, consistently, the side that has the like kiosk that you're talking for the drive-through is still very plain, and that's facing a very major road for us.
This one you're talking about?
Yeah, and I get that there's limitations. Would there be plantings or anything to like?
Oh, yeah, we would go back to the site plan. So we've gotten to the point where, yeah, we've been able to push this through. We're going to skate a sidewalk through here, similar to Duncan. It'd be in the town right away through here, and that gives us a generous area for a lot of landscaping as well. That'd be the intent. If I can get
Taller plantings or, because I guess my point is that facing side on Rowland is very plain, and I think it'd be very jarring for, it just would stand out and
maybe one of the staff can help. You have a street tree requirement every I can't
40
remember
feet.
it.
I think it's
Every 40 feet, there'd be a street tree.
Okay, yep.
And then there'd be obviously low-lying planting, so you want to help kind of screen that, the
Okay.
drive out.
Well,
Absolutely.
and then you saw what they showed in Milltown Center where they had, even the signage became part of that little walled or gate fenced effect that could be there with using vegetation,
Mm-hmm.
so there are things you could put there to create this wall that also screens the blandness of
I
that.
think that's what the intent, yes. A lot of low-lying stuff here to help kind of screen that view into it and soften that.
And I mean, I know you said, for example, you had a pole sign. Everybody's gonna know in Milton where McDonald's is. They're not gonna need a pole sign to get them there.
Not with this building, I don't know if they're gonna know that.
Well, they're gonna know. They're gonna know. I mean, you could have a sign along the sidewalk, 3, 4 feet high that just said McDonald's
Couldn't,
as opposed to a pole. I mean, you've got also the arches on the building, the name on the building. So there's gonna be lots of,
What does,
can you put the,
doesn't Duncan have a pole sign
they
then?
have a pole sign, but I don't know that we would have, this board would have approved.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we have, I don't think a monument style sign wouldn't be a problem, honestly.
I mean, the other thing is, we looked for this craftsman style, gabled roofs. And we're not getting that. We're still getting a box. And,
Well, we
you
tried
look
to
at,
break it up with some of that detailing.
yeah, but you look at Saratoga Springs, look at, we've got a whole bunch of other ones I could show you, where McDonald's puts a lot more design into meeting the character of the community. I think Sophia shared you some of the other buildings in town that we would be looking at. I know you had mentioned once that you wanted a flatter roof surface because you wanted a lot of your mechanicals up there.
That's right.
But they did that at the community core site and kept a gable-looking roof, but it was all false. So there was, most of the roof surface was flat. Yeah,
that's what that is,
That's exactly what this is.
right?
but that doesn't go across the whole building.
Okay.
And if you see it at the community core, it's much higher. So you get a true feeling like that's a gabled roof structure. What Duncan has over the drive-through is also a gabled roof structure that's already there.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of looking for on that one, that it would show more of a gable type for the overhang.
The big difference is here in, between like let's say a Dunkin' and a McDonald's, and Dunkin's a client of mine too. Dunkin' doesn't cook food. They just warm food. So Dunkin', McDonald's cooks food. We have, multiple fryers, multiple ovens, and all those create roof penetrations. And trying to do a gable roof with a dozen or so roof penetrations it's going to be cost prohibitive for McDonald's. So I guess what I can say is, though, hearing what you said, I can see what can be done to maybe continue this kind of detail around the rest of the building to give you that faux, it gives you a gable look, but it's, it's fooling the eye to look like a real gable.
And I guess, because you're talking about roof penetrations for the main roof, the carport, I don't know what that's good. Porta share. Yeah, I mean, that, I think,
This isn't great representation. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit more embellished. Yeah.
well, I think that might be John's point, John Whittle's point, that, maybe have it.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood you.
Yeah, because it's pretty plain currently.
Maybe I wasn't clear.
Oh,
Did I
okay,
get that
okay.
right?
Yeah, you got
Okay,
it
all right.
100% right. Yeah,
I got you.
thank you for
So
clarifying.
would you think then if I was able to get a gable on this, you could live with a certain, just having kind of the dining room area with that faux gable and the rest of it can be more of a flat roof? Am I getting there?
That's the side that,
That's the side that faces, Trieble, not
Yes.
the Rowland side that's that. Whoops.
Could you name these 3 different versions?
Well,
So
yeah, I
when
thought
we're
about that when I was
talking,
driving up here. I go, this is
we
going
could
to be
do
confusing.
door number
See?
1, door number 2.
show the roof there.
I mean, I like door
Name
number
it Quarter
3.
Pounder, Big Mac.
That's the one, right? So,
Yeah. So something more than just a flat roof here.
Yeah.
No.
So
is
I've
that
got some
one or
other
two or
designs that
three?
I pulled that I'd like
Yes, that'd
Amanda
be,
to share to give you guys a sense.
Okay, so if you'll please in the future, reference which one were two. I'm favoring three.
So I'm going to ask Amanda to pull up a file that we created on some other McDonald's. So if you want to pull that up. So that's Saratoga Springs, our neighbor. Scroll down.
Did you build that?
We did. Bowler did that.
That's Freeport, Maine.
I mean, I like.
You're not gonna believe this. That's not the first time I've seen that show.
I know, I've seen it hundreds.
That's the one on
There's,
Long Island, right?
That one?
New Hyde Park, New York. You know, so I'm just getting to the point, you know, there's, I think, somewhere out west. But, you know, no flat roofs, plenty of cooking area. I think they're accommodating their things. And then one more. If we really wanted to go retro, this would be kind of neat in Milton. And that has a drive-through.
There's one of those in Utica, New York. You can still
Yeah,
see that.
so
Yeah, I've been there.
we can get a lot more character, I think.
Like false parapets. I think a false parapet's something to think about. And Sophia just pulled up the Google Earth image of the Dunkin' Donuts in Malta, where they have a full bakery, and that has a false parapet. So you, from looking at the building, you think there are gables. When you look at from a top down, it's a flat
Flat.
roof.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of a treatment that I think we're looking for, you know, and that, again, it's really, those gables are really important to the architectural style. And also when you look at Duncan, and I realize it's not 100% analogous, but they have used architectural columns to really define the building. I am hearing the lighter color palette is more preferable to the darker color palette, and that will blend in better with all of the things that are along that streetscape. So I think the board's making really good comments.
And it'll complement the other ones like across the street and so forth.
The other one is Kinderhook, New York has a really cool Dunkin' Donuts that you can look up.
Something to build a Dunkin' Donuts.
No, I just think, you know, we were trying to create an image and a style that fits the town center and trying to keep with that to the extent we can.
May I ask, what are your limits in building? Is it cost? Is it materials? Is it,
Yeah, I mean, everything comes down
you know,
to
you
cost.
came in with a plan
That's right.
so that in your mind and McDonald's thought it fit. We're coming up with something different. You must have some limitations of what we would like to suggest to you. Or we don't have any
Oh,
limitations.
we have a limitation.
I think we're giving our input though, so that the applicant can provide us within their costs what the best is for our community. So it's not so much for us to ask what his limitations are, it's for us to give our comment and what is best for this town. And, you know, following as closely as possible to our town center guidelines, which are pretty clear. So I'd like to not worry about, he'll figure out that part, so.
And we've had very successful businesses. I mean, we got the largest Hannaford grossing store on the Eastern Seaboard. It's not like this McDonald's isn't going to get a lot of use.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right, so I guess what I'm hearing though, I think this color palette, this lighter one is we're hitting the mark here. It's just, we need to work on maybe the roof treatments. Is that generally what I heard?
So, and, you know, just for the purposes of not keeping this on the whole time.
We're going to get headsets for you guys.
Yes, so he will regret it immediately. Just to share comments with the board. So the applicant's representative and you have the same material that covers key elements of the town center design guidelines that are indicated with specific citations to it that you can use as a basis for decisions and requests that you are making for design or site modifications. And I've also provided with you Obviously, no surprise to anyone, but just little photographic representations of some of the adjacent developments. So you have very specific building design features that you're clearly responding to that I think can give our applicant just more specific direction. Because I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make sure that this is productive for everybody. And I think the clearer that we can be in the direction that we give our applicant, the better. And I don't want us to overlook the function of the layout. The architectural component is obviously an incredibly important piece, but I do want to make sure that we are also entertaining and considering, again, kind of the optimal layout that balances the need between drive-through and the pedestrian intersectionality of that as well.
Actually, speaking of pedestrian, I didn't see on the overview with like the parking, they're going to be marking like for crossing?
Yeah, like I said, this came together.
Sure.
This afternoon, but yeah, so, I think we end up matching, Duncan with this, basically they have sidewalks on basically three sides. We'll provide a direct connection, probably straight through here across to connect to that sidewalk as well. So, yeah, that'll be definitely in a cleaned up site plan, yes. So I think what I gotta do, what I heard today is, I'm gonna work with McDonald's and I'll come back I'll get up, make sure I got it back to you for the December meeting, so maybe we can we'll be close by then.
Yeah. And everybody does agree that Rowland should be the town center's frontage focus, correct? Okay. I want to make sure we were clear. Just prior to that, I think we were hinting it was going to be Trieble, but I think in this case, consistent with the community bank, Duncan, Sunmark, at least until we transition to the way northern part of the property. It's the Rowland Street focus.
And if I could just add one more thing, just for the parking you have on that would be the south side, that would be the stuff next to what would be the lot or Trusco.
Right over here, yep.
Yeah. If you could think about and show us how you're gonna handle the pedestrians getting from there through your drive-through area over to the restaurant. I assume that's why they're there because they're gonna park, or you're sending them there for.
That or the staff's going to park there.
Yeah, or the staff or.
It's probably be primarily used for, employee parking, that's exactly right.
Well, can we make that note then? Cause.
Yeah, sure.
Cause, I was wondering how you were gonna kind of keep the cars separate from the pedestrians there, like coming around and then trying to park.
This is not an unusual configuration
No.
for parking on, but yeah, there's no way the operator would let, staff use the premium spots. He's gonna say, you guys park in the back. Absolutely.
Most likely, right?
Yeah.
But if we design it for that, then we can say that that's what that is, right?
That's fine. Yeah. We can label it. Sure. All right. Thank you very much for the feedback.
Thank you.
Have a good
Yep.
holiday.
Thank
You too. Okay, next we have the Doubleday Mixed-Use Development Special Use Permit and Site Plan. We last saw this project in March where we left the applicant with several questions and analysis we wanted to see. Mr. Lansing, you're going to do the presentation for now? Okay. Okay.
You sure?
Okay.
Okay, good evening, Scott Lansing with Lansing Engineering, representing New York Development Group, Rowland LLC. I'm also here tonight with the applicant for the project, Mr. Jeffrey Booth. Our primary objectives for this evening are just to update the board since the last time we were before the board. It was quite a few months ago that we were last presenting on this project. Our goals for tonight are to obtain feedback from the planning board on the project. We would like to request a seeker determination on the project, set a public hearing for the next meeting, and hopefully advance to preliminary and final approval for the project. Just to recap the project for the board, again, it has been some time since we've been before the board. As far as the location, we are on the west side of Route 50, approximately 2,100 feet south of North Line Road. We do have two parcels that comprise the overall parcel, which is 10.54 acres, and the parcel is currently vacant. We are zoned CMU, Commercial Mixed Use District, as well as there is a Stream Corridor Overlay District on the northern portion of the parcel. Surrounding uses to the project do include commercial, single family, and retail. This is a wider view of the project to show some of the adjoining property uses to the parcel. As far as the proposal itself, we are proposing a mixed-use development. Everything that we are proposing is per code, and I'll go into more detail as we advance along. So we're not asking for any variances of any sort on the project. No yard setback variances, parking setbacks, height variances, use variances, anything of that nature. This project is in 100% conformance with the zoning code, with the exception of the Stream Corridor Overlay waiver, which is planning board can provide. We have provided a waiver application for that waiver, but outside of that waiver, again, there are no variances and we are 100% code compliant. As far as the proposal itself, we have a mixture of residential and commercial. The commercial includes a 5,400 square foot building in the front of the parcel by Route 50 on the bottom of the page. This is a single story structure, less than 35 feet in height. We're also proposing a 7,900 square foot structure in the back portion of the parcel. That is also a single story structure, again, less than 35 feet in height. And then we're proposing two multifamily residential structures in the back. Each one of these are 9,440 square feet as far as the footprint. They are 4 stories, less than 50 feet in height. There are 27 units per building, so combining the two buildings, there are 54 units. The first floor are is primarily for parking, and the second, third, and fourth floor are primarily for residential units. As far as the density for the residential, the code, the CMU does outline a maximum of 16 dwelling units per acre. That would equate to approximately 169 units on this parcel. We're obviously much less than that with the 54 units that we are proposing. We're about 5.1 dwelling units per acre as opposed to the 16 dwelling units per acre. As far as access, we have shared access. We have access, 2 access points from Route 50 coming in and servicing the various parcels, or the parcels and the various buildings. As far as the parking, the code outlines 184 spaces that are required for the combination of the residential and commercial uses. We are providing 216, so we meet and exceed that requirement. As far as green space and coverage, the code does outline maximum structure coverage of 75%. So that's maximum. We are 7.2% for our overall parcel for the structures. The parcel does go off the map. We're focusing in on where the actual development area is so that the board can see the development closer, but we do have 7.2% coverage where 75% max is required, so we're much less than that. Max impervious, 90% max is that's a requirement. You cannot exceed 90% impervious surface. We're 25.8%. So again, much less on that. And then green space overall, 10% minimum is required. We are 74.2% green space on our parcel. So again, on those requirements, we're far exceeding all of the requirements in the zoning district. As far as water, we are proposing public water. Would be the village of Ballston Spa that would be providing the water. And sewer would be public sewer through the Saratoga County Sewer District. And stormwater would be managed on site. We did receive comments from Delaware Engineering. Letter was dated 11/6. We just received those comments yesterday. We have gone through those, and they're, for the most part, I feel they're mostly technical in nature. There's nothing in there that we take exception to, and we'll be more than happy to address those. There were just a few comments that we wanted to go through. We thought they were worthy of discussion for this evening. One, there was some question of lot conformance and dimensional standards for the parking, the buildings, the individual lots. This is a plan that, quite honestly, we did meet very early on in the process. We met with the code enforcement officer We met, I believe the planning board chair might have been at some of those initial meetings where we sat down and looked at parking setbacks, front yards, rear yards, side yards, along with the lot line adjustment that we are proposing to make sure that everything was in conformance with the code. And this plan is included in the set, has been included in the set, and outlines how we meet all of those various requirements. So we feel we have addressed that one. As far as pedestrian circulation, there was a great comment relative to making sure that all the buildings have pedestrian connectivity as well as connectivity to the roadway. Excuse me, this plan has been modified from what the board has seen, where we do now have pedestrian connectivity, basically connecting the buildings to one another, connecting the central area between the buildings, and then also providing access routes out towards Route 50 for whatever potential future pedestrian network might be on the Route 50 corridor. So we feel we have addressed that one as well. There was a question about emergency vehicle access and also delivery vehicle access. We have created this plan to include in with the set. This does show fire truck navigating through the parcel in various configurations, and there are no problems with fire apparatus going through the site. And if a fire apparatus vehicle can go through, there should be no problem with any sort of delivery vehicle for the parcel. Next was relative to view and screening from adjoining properties. And we did provide some profiles, various profiles of a true perspective from structure to structure, from what a person might actually see from the residential structures adjacent. I know there were some images shared earlier in this meeting. They were more of an aerial type view looking down on the site, not a true perspective of what it would look like from site to site. So we have provided profile views of that, and these are some expansions of that for the board to view. And I'm just going to open up the view on this a little bit. So the first one is from 20 Encore. There was a request to take a look at how it might look from 20 Encore, and we did provide previous profiles of a person in the backyard. So basically somebody away from the house, closer to the structures, and that is somebody roughly in the center of the backyard of that structure, average height person, and this is basically with no mitigation. So we have the retaining wall in this area, which I'm having a hard time seeing this right now, but I think it's about 6.2 feet, I believe, in this area. And the view from that person there would look like this on the side. So the image on the right-hand side, that is new. That is not something that was included in the last submission. That's something that we felt was appropriate so the board could properly evaluate how it might look from those adjacent residents. So this is with no mitigation, no fence, no plantings, no anything. The next one down is with a 6-foot fence. So this is, again, that same person in the backyard looking up over the fence, and that person would be able to see roughly the first story of that of the apartment building. So that's a fence only. And then the next image is with the plantings, which we are proposing green giant arborvitaes. I'll do my best on the Latin pronunciation, Thuja standicia explicata, which is the green giant, which is a variation with a growth rate of approximately 3 feet per year, mature height of 50 to 60 feet. In what we're showing here, we have the max height at 40 feet, the maturity height at 40 feet. So we're doing less than what they outline as a mature height, and a mature spread of 12 to 20 feet on the examples that we're showing here. We have 14 feet wide, so we're a little lower on the spread. We think that hopefully they'll get to those larger sizes, but we're keeping it conservative on the evaluation. As far as the with the plantings, we have the same views as without mitigation with the fence, and then we have with the fence, and we're showing the plantings at 4 to 5 years, so about a 25-foot height, starting off at about 10 and going to 25 feet at the 5-year mark. And then down below, this is at the 40 feet. So this is the same section, same view. We just did 2 views for that to show what it might look like over 5 years to maturity. So that is 20 Encore. And one thing I did forget to outline as far as the structure, The structure is actually taken from architectural drawings, so we're able to get sections of the house. So this is a true indication of the house. This is also surveyed in as far as the elevation of the home. So we're sure that the elevation of the home relative to what we are proposing is proper. As far as the height of the structures, I would also like to mention that, you know, the height of the structures is roughly the same. I know we have a 4-story structure and a 2-story structure, but as far as the topography change and the elevation of structure to structure, we basically have top of structure pretty darn close to the top of the next structure. The next thing we want to look at, and this is not included in the packet, is basically what would it look like from the second story of 20 Encore Drive. We thought that was appropriate because there might be a concern about what it might look like from out of a window of one of those structures. So we basically did the same exact analysis that you saw in the last slide. The first one is without any mitigation, so no fence, no plantings, no anything. So this is what it would look like. So there would be a full view of the structure from the second story without any mitigation. With the fence is roughly cutting off the first floor. With the plantings at 4 to 5 years, it's just about up to the third floor, so that would be similar to adjacent 2-story structure. And then at the maturity mark, it would be pretty well completely screened at that point in time. So that is 20 Encore Drive. We then moved on to 22 Encore Drive. Same exact exercise, same two points. The first one being in the backyard, middle of the backyard, average height person looking across. Again, without any sort of screening, you can see the structure with the fence roughly cuts off the first floor. And then within 4 years, 4 to 5 years, pretty much the whole structure is screened. The reason for that is the center of the backyard is closer to the plantings, so the plantings have more drastic effect on the screening. And then last but not least, at maturity, the structure should be completely screened. Same thing as the last example, we also took a look at from inside the structure. This is a single-story structure. Again, same thing as far as the architecture, where we're able to get sections of the house, as well as do a survey and grade check of the finished floor elevation of that home. So relative structure to relative structure is exact between these. And again, from the first floor view, without any screening, any mitigation at all, you can see the structure. Fencing cuts off the first floor within 4 to 5 years, pretty well screened and mitigated, and then at maturity, completely screened. So that is what we put together for those individual homes. Was also requested by the planning board chair to take a look at what it would look like from the apartment building itself, from the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. And quite honestly, a lot of the similar results to the last sketches you saw as far as what is visible both back and forth. As far as with the screening, the will be mitigated, will be screened from the adjoining structures. So that was it for the primary comments from the letter that we received from Delaware. There was just one other thing I wanted to go through. This was not requested by the board, but it was brought up by the adjoining property owners as far as talking about vegetation, talking about shadow study. We did put something together on this, again, although not requested by the board. The first slide is what the site looked like prior to the homes being built. So they were very well wooded lots in these particular areas. As far as when they were constructed, the lot, I believe this is the single story, I believe that is 22. That was completely cleared right to the property lines on all 4 sides. On 20, there was some vegetation maintained, except for in the corner where they did clear to the corner of the lot. I did want to mention, as far as the arborvitaes that are being proposed, they are being proposed along the entire length of the open area. They're not being proposed, obviously, where there's existing vegetation, but they are proposed to provide screening where the adjoining property owners took down that screening and to provide a buffer for them, screening for them. As far as a shadow study, we did take a look at the parcel. For the existing vegetation along the end, we estimated the height of those trees to be 50 feet. We based that off of the height of the structures and then eyeballing the trees. We did not climb up and measure the trees, but we feel it's a good representation of what those trees are in that area. What's shown in this shadow study right here, this is on December 21st at 9:07 a.m. So this is pretty much where the sun is at the absolute lowest point in the sky throughout the year. And you can see where the shadow goes up towards the cul-de-sac on Encore Drive. Changing to what we have with the structures, and this was created before we put the fence and the plantings. So we wanted to, and also even if we did have the plantings, we want to take a look at what the true shadow was from the buildings that are being proposed. So with the grade change, you can see that the shadow line from these buildings is really not all that significantly different from the buildings that are up the hill in a way. So when those plantings are put back in, the shadow line will probably be close, very similar to what is there currently. So that is essentially it. Again, we're here tonight for questions and comments from the board. We would like to request a public hearing be set for the next available meeting, and we would like to ask for the board to consider a seeker determination on the project as well. And that's essentially it. Thank you very much.
Ms. Bianconti.
Thank you. So we did provide a comment letter. I won't go through every single thing on here, but I do have some sort of significant things. So on the water system, there's a list of comments that's a carryover from prior. I don't think any of them have been addressed. Just sort of the hit parade. While the village may be supplying the water, this is in the town. So on evaluation is whether this is in a town water district needs to be conducted, and then the process to put it in a water district needs to be outlined. Documentation that there's a DEC water supply permit for this area. Coordination with the agency having jurisdiction, which is here in the town, the fire inspector, regarding the nature of the fire suppression that's required for this site, detailed calculations for that fire suppression, flow and pressure, confirmation that the village's water line in this location has that flow and pressure. Hydrant testing is generally required for that analysis. And then there's a couple of other minor comments. But this is critical. Folks will remember we went through this with the Milltown project, so it's the same analysis. There's no difference. Regarding the lots, I wasn't involved in whatever conversations about the lot line, but I am a little confused. We're going to end up with 2 lots, and the site is being kind of treated in 2 ways. One is the entire site is being looked at as, quote, the site, except you're going to have 2 lots. And I'm not aware of any restrictions that would say that they couldn't be sold. So if you sell one of the lots, let's just, for instance, say you sell the southern lot, we need to know that you can't create a non-conforming lot. We need to know that the southern lot has integrity as a lot, that it meets all of the requirements. Right now, the driveway that enters the site at that location is split between the parcels. So I don't know, it's a 2-way driveway. I don't know how that. So I don't know what the conversation was about the lots.
It wasn't there on the lot line. That was Bill Lewis.
So to me, if you're gonna treat the site as one whole site, then just do a lot line adjustment to get rid of the lot entirely. And then you can do your math and treat the whole site as one giant site. Because in terms of like coverage and things, the coverage calculations are treating it as though it's all one big giant lot, and it's not, it's actually 2. So we just need, I don't know what that conversation was, but to me, unless someone's going to deed restrict this, it says it can never be sold or whatever. Those are pretty substantial issues that have to be addressed. The southern parcel doesn't have a dumpster on it. It's relying on the northern parcel dumpster. The southern parcel and the utilities are all kind of cross-connected. So if they were sold to different owners and they're intended to be under private ownership, something would need to be done there to ensure that there was continued use for both parcels of the utilities. Some of these things were, I think, just addressed tonight. One thing that I do want to point out, and I think some of the neighbors have pointed out before, the wetlands on the site or on the plans are called a conservation area. I think that we need to be really clear about what that means. Does that mean that there's going to be a deed restriction for those areas that they can never be built on? Or is it just that they're wetlands and there's no permit to disturb them? So I think we just need to be careful about that. The plans are missing a bunch of legend symbols, so particularly the utility plans. There's a retaining wall obviously proposed. The force main is going to go underneath that at some point, and it's not necessary now, but prior to approvals, the actual details of that retaining wall, the drainage associated with it, how deep it will be, the force main, separation distances would be required. I did comment on the fact that the plan is very auto-dominated and didn't have any pedestrian features. It sounds like that was addressed, but I haven't seen those plans. I think the most substantive comments, and there's been some time talked about tonight, the town's code, it does require consideration of the adequacy, type, and arrangement of trees, shrubs, and other landscaping. And then what the town's requirement is, it needs to constitute a visual buffer and or a noise deterring buffer between the applicant and adjoining lands, including maximum retention of existing vegetation. This section of code also requires protection of adjacent and neighboring properties against noise, glare, unsightliness, and other objectionable features. So we do have all of these line of sight analysis. The proposed landscaping on the site in general is extremely minimal and certainly doesn't provide a visual buffer from Doubleday looking in, which is one of the requirements. The line of sight for lots 1 and 2, line of sight 1 and 2, figures 1 and 2 for 20 and 22 Encore Drive depict the view from the nearest and adjacent residential structures. These profiles show that with just the retaining wall, a person on any of these adjacent buildings would have a fully unobstructed view of the west side of the buildings. The addition of a 6-foot fence on top only obscures the lowermost story. The balance of the buildings are still fully in view. These sheets also show installation of a row of 10-foot at installation fast-growing arborvitae on the lands of 20 and 22 Encore Drive would obscure the first floor initially and eventually obscure the entire building. But that is a question. I don't know how the applicant doesn't own those lands. And I don't know without agreement from those property owners how mitigation can be on their properties. They would need to agree to it. And, you need to have some kind of a who's going to maintain it. I will say my experience with those fast growing arborvitaes, they do grow fast. They also grow to maturity really fast and then they die really fast. So that's a pretty substantial issue that has to be addressed because we have definitely seen that. We have documented that those fast growing arborvitaes have trouble once they're at maturity. Another issue is that the analysis shows that at the 40-foot mature height of the arborvitaes, that you have to have that, or from the apartment buildings, you have a view into the residential homes. And again, that's a privacy issue that has to be addressed. It doesn't appear to me that the landscaping as proposed meets the spirit and intent of the town's code. And my recommendation is that given the number of issues, particularly with respect to water and the lot issues, as well as the requirements for buffering and screening, my recommendation is that the board does not have enough information to complete seeker or to schedule a hearing.
If I could just address a few of those items. As far as the water district water supply permit, we have talked with the Village of Ballston Spa. We talked with Mr. Gowries at the DPW. They've indicated more than adequate capacity. They're willing to serve the project. We are within a DEC water service area, so it is something that we need to get some approvals with this board prior to advancing with the village. As far as the lot coverage, we can take a look and analyze each individual lot, given the requirements of 75% max structure coverage. I know we're going to be more than adequate on both lots. Impervious 90% max. We're much less than that. And then green space 10%. We have much more than 10% on the lots, but we will absolutely put those numbers together and provide for each individual lot. As far as access, ingress, egress, utilities, crossing the two parcels. Very typical for easement agreements between individual lots. We actually see in a lot of these different projects where you have multifamily buildings, multiple buildings on one lot. We end up doing subdivisions on the lots for financing purposes because banks do not necessarily want to finance all or have a lot associated with a larger lot associated with one building, but then other buildings on that individual parcel. So easement agreements between lots, very, very common and something that the applicants can put together. We do have a dumpster on the south that has been on the plans. It is located in the back corner. It's kind of tucked away there. Might be tough to see. As far as the wetlands and the outside areas outside of the project, the applicant does intend to provide deed restrictions on those areas for that open space. As far as the visual buffer, that's an item for discussion in that the applicant, the project is 100% zoning compliant as far as setbacks and height and uses and everything with the parcel. There is a concern about screening. The applicants have offered to plant these trees at their expense to provide a screening and a buffer for the adjoining properties where they removed any sort of screening or buffer on their property. So it's something that they're looking to work with the adjoining property owners and whatever agreements are required for that. I'm sure the applicants would be willing to discuss that. And I think that is, as far as visual buffer from Doubleday, I'm sorry. As far as plantings and landscaping along Doubleday, quite honestly, we're not proposing a whole lot because we're trying to preserve the existing trees as much as possible. There's a stand of trees in this general area that provide, in my opinion, excellent screening and buffer. There are trees and open space area in the middle that associate with a wetland in this area that is also being preserved. And then likewise on the south end, trees are being preserved in here with some plantings on the ends. Interior, we do provide planting plans around the structures and then on the parking islands as well. So we feel that we've provided adequate screening by preserving vegetation along Doubleday. Thank you.
Board comments at this time.
So earlier you said the first floor of the residential buildings will have parking. Have you considered, and I don't know the numbers that you have as far as parking, that last row of parking at the back of the property line, is there any way you could consider moving it or reducing the number so you can get more, like, so you're not on top of the lot line, I guess is my point. And I am concerned about the screening, even with the attempt to put the arborvitaes. I just would encourage, the applicant to think about how much can, reconsider. Maybe they can preserve more of the existing trees and vegetation and to back away from that line. I don't see, and you'll have to tell me, but I don't know that you need that many parking spots if there's already parking spots under those buildings. So it's been a lot of discussion for several months, even when you weren't here, that there's concern. And I'm going to be honest, I'm glad it was brought up. The fast growing arborvitaes, they die. I've seen them. So maybe reconsider that.
Other comments?
Could you point out exactly where the property line is on the top of the plot there?
Yeah, it might be best to,
Well, can you point at it with the trees in the view?
the property line is just in front of the trees. Actually, the drip line of, say, the very first row, we have them staggered along there. The drip line of the very first row is about where the property line is, just inside of the drip line.
So I think your picture there is very misleading then. I think you should make those plot lines, those lot lines very clear on there where those trees are.
Yeah, we can highlight that, and that is a problem with the rendering. In order to get those trees to show up, we had to extend the rendering out, but that's kind of why I wanted to go to this next plan, because this does show we have the parking, the wall, and then the property line is just beyond that.
Okay, so the trees are on the homeowner's property.
Correct. Fence would be on the applicant's property, trees would be on the neighbor's property.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not sure that meets the intent. I think that if you're gonna put a commercial structure and you're gonna shield from the residential structure, I think the intent of our code would say that you control that. And it's on your control wholly. And if you're gonna rely on the property owner to have you meet the requirements, then I'm trying to understand how you view that works and meets the parts of required screening for non-residential uses, right? And marrying that with the site plan, I'm wondering how you meet it wholly in your particular property and what's in your control without them agreeing.
Sure. As far as the mitigation, the applicants can provide a fence along the property line. I think in the initial discussions with the planning board, there was a suggestion of a fence. The applicants were more than happy to do that. And then there was a discussion about, from the neighbors, about we'd like some additional screening, buffering. That's when the applicants did suggest planting vegetation where vegetation had been taken down, something that could be narrow and as tight as we can make it, but provide the best screening benefit. So that's where we came up with the plantings. And obviously that would be some cooperation with the adjoining property owner, because the mitigation that was initially requested provided was the fence. Some additional screening was the plantings, and we're trying to work together with the neighbors on that.
Okay, thanks.
Does that mean that your plan should not show those trees because it's not a part of his site plan?
Clarify that.
It is.
Well,
correct.
in this here, those trees aren't your trees.
Oh, we're proposing them that as a part of the project though, so that's why we're including them. I understand what you're saying, but it's proposed as mitigation and cooperation with the neighbors in the town to provide.
So for infinity, you're gonna have those trees there and replace them every time they die?
It would be something that we put on the adjoining property owner's property, then they could control those, so they could make sure they weren't
I
cut
think
down
that's the
or-
problem.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's the
That's
problem.
putting too much onus on people that are being inconvenienced by this project. And I highly encourage your applicant, your client to think about that. Because right now, I mean, yes, you are within your right to build these buildings, it follows the code, but it is significantly altering the character of those people's homes. And you said, oh, we're replacing vegetation that was taken down. No, you're not. You're not replacing the vegetation that was taken down on that site. You're putting on someone else's property. So there's a distinction there, and I don't think it's adequate.
I agree with that.
Other comments? Okay, so now the next thing is, I mean, at the advice of our engineer, but also with the comments you guys have raised, we're not in a position to do its part 2 and 3 of the full environmental impact assessment here.
We can take a poll.
No, I guess the question is what direction do you want to give to the applicant in terms of addressing some of the concerns in a different way?
No, go ahead.
That,
I think any mitigation you propose should be entirely on your lot.
do you
And I,
have thoughts of how that mitigation occurs? Is that by moving buildings? Is it by?
whatever it takes to get the trees onto your property and the fence with all the required setbacks. And I think there needs to be some kind of a maintenance schedule for that wall, especially when I see pictures of flowing water that could be behind it.
Yeah, if I could address that, there was a video that I saw at the beginning of the meeting with flowing water. that was described as on the adjoining property to the south. You know, quite honestly, I don't refute that at all. That is lower in elevation. That is a drainage way. If you move forward to our plans, it shows that drainage way through this area. So I don't doubt that. And it's also next to a jurisdictional Army Corps of Engineers wetland, which we are outside of. So that drainage, while it is a concern, it's a downstream concern, downstream of this property, and not something that affects this property. There is some small drainage along the back that has been accommodated for in our stormwater pollution prevention plan. So I do feel the drainage is fully encompassed in the plan.
Coming back to that mitigation, I'd like to see if you can not have the parking in the back, as was perhaps previously suggested. And instead of doing that, put more screening and larger screening. Like more, like trees to get to 100 feet, 150 feet, something like that. Because they're already going to be, what, 10 or 11 feet down, right? In some spots, 6
some
feet,
spots.
and in others,
Yes.
judging by the elevations. And then when you, can you clarify whether you're showing, another comment that was made was whether we were showing drive-throughs or not? Can you clarify? Because before you said we wouldn't be proposing it at this juncture because we're not sure.
Yeah, the applicants are not sure on drive-throughs, so there are no drive-throughs proposed as a part of this plan. They were initially. It was something that was just a thought, an idea. They don't have any tenants in mind. If somebody does come through and there is some tenant that requires a drive-through, we'll be back before this board for a special use permit for that drive-through. But there are no drive-throughs proposed at this time.
And have you done any borings in to see if there's water just under the surface there with the land that's going to be removed to make that back part in front of, or to the, I guess that would be the northwest of the end of the property to the neighboring properties? Have you done anything in there to see if there's surface groundwater?
Oh, we have done test pits for the stormwater management area. That's more in the front of the parcel.
Nope, I'm talking about the stuff at the
No,
back.
I understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, no, we have not done any specifically in that area. We will be doing those for geotech work for the structures when the structures are designed.
I think we should get an idea if there's any surface water in there, because when you open it up, you may find it. Because I know in other areas I'm familiar with, it's only like 4 feet below and there's water. I don't know about in that particular spot, but it is a rather wet area, so could be.
I'm just generally in consensus with Mary Beth. You know, she's saying we need more information. So I'm not ready to move forward until we have that. So thanks.
I did have a question on the lot line adjustment and where it is and what purpose it is, and then the conveyance of the total lot. So I've seen that boundary now. Some of the earlier maps from 2023 don't identify that as the lot line adjustment. It's not until we get to March of 2024 that line is there.
Okay.
And labeled.
I thought we had him move the lot line and put it on the road ourselves. I thought we had him do that.
Okay, I just want to go back and revisit that because that in turn then is going to deal with the density of the project site. And the fact that it's only the one commercial pad that's on lot one.
Yeah, as far as the lot line itself, there are 2 existing lots, and then we're adjusting the lot line, so there's no net increase or decrease in the number of lots. The existing lot line is a rather odd configuration. I believe it comes down here, comes across, and then goes over and down somewhere in here. So making it more of a typical uniform lot line to divide the parcels, divide the structures. But again, we'll provide the calculations for the lots. Absolutely no concern.
Because when you go to the lot 2, that extends way up further beyond these buildings.
Yes.
And and the density is taking into consideration that area.
Correct. Yes.
So what's going to clarify what the future of that area is going to be?
That would be deed restricted open space.
So we should receive some language on
Oh, yeah, we'd have to have some of that. Okay. So as we stand now, we have this as a unlisted action. FEAF Part 1 is done. We don't have enough information to do Parts 2 and 3. The county's asked for more information. I don't know that, have you responded directly to the county and gotten anything?
We did,
back?
yes. We sent responses to Jeff Williams.
Have you gotten anything back?
I have not received anything back. I believe they,
I'm assuming he's still looking for some of us. And then on the water, I mean, there's going to still have to be some town water district established here at some point.
I
I don't know that the village can just provide you water without any administrative. You're going to
correct.
need a transportation corporation or a
Yeah.
town water district.
Yeah, no, we'd like to go the route of the water district. But the village has agreed to provide water to the project. We need to obviously advance the project a little further before we can petition for a water district extension.
We still, just to jump in, we need all that documentation though. We don't have anything. We just have you saying that you've been talking to the village. So just like the last project, we need all the paperwork, right? We need in writing, all the analysis, we need the data, we need, we can't just say, oh, they said it was fine, right? We actually need a record on which the
Yes.
board is making a decision. So you're right, the district proceeding can't happen until after you're out of this review. But for these guys to do seeker, the district proceeding needs to be part of that discussion. All of that information and that data has to be part of this discussion, this approval, so that we know, because the board can't approve your site plan if we haven't got documentation that shows you have adequate water supply. Right now, we have nothing. We literally don't have anything in the record other than you said you talked to the village. So we need the paperwork, which you may very well have. We just don't have any of that. And I would add that for anything where you're saying there would be cross easements or deed restrictions, it is a requirement of a site plan that all of that stuff is outlined. That all that stuff has to be in this application for the board to consider it a complete application. So it's okay to say those things, but we need the actual paper. We need proposed easements. We need proposed deed restrictions in writing to be part of this, for this to be a complete application under the town's code.
Is there a start that we should also do for the sewer?
We do have correspondence with the Saratoga County Sewer District. We have gone through a round of comments with them, and they're ready to provide approval. Again, looking for some advancement with the planning board. As far as the water, I believe we have provided a water supply report for the project outlining the flows for the project, but we can absolutely follow up with Mr. Garies and see if we can get formal documentation from them on the.
Are we going to need a
the well-
sewer district by the town as well?
No, it's a Saratoga County Sewer.
This
It's
is
part
in
of
the
the county
Saratoga County
district,
Sewer District, and I have been copied on all the correspondences back and forth, and we had issued sewer comments, they had issued
Yeah,
sewer comments.
okay.
I think all the sewer comments have been addressed
Yeah,
at this
that's what I
point.
thought.
It's really just water. We need water documentation.
Okay.
And then these other,
Where is the sewer line connection for this?
Comes through the
Two on court.
through Encore
Oh, through
Drive.
Encore, that's right. That's
Right.
one that comes
Through Encore Drive.
That's why I would bring it.
So that's an issue with the retaining wall, right? And right, so when you build a retaining wall, you are, it's got footings that go down pretty deep, right? And this is a 6-foot tall retaining wall, so it's holding back a lot of earth. So making sure that there's adequate drainage around that retaining wall so that, we don't have, there's not an issue there, either that groundwater is either following the retaining wall or undermining the retaining wall. Those kinds of things are really important details. And then it's proposed that the force main will go underneath the retaining wall, which you can do. But obviously, whatever that depth of footing of the retaining wall is, the force main's got to be below that. It can't interfere with any drainage, because the force main we want to keep away from groundwater. We don't want groundwater getting into a pressure sewer. So those details, we don't, right now we have what we need for this for now. When it gets to the building department and there's an actual proposal to build something, a lot more details will be required on the design of the retaining wall. But on the water system, maybe going back to the record, we kind of have a report, but we still don't have any. If you all will recall what we did with Milltown, we have actual documentation from the village. We have an engineering report from them with all their data in it that it's very detailed. So we need something of that. They just did this, so it should be the same thing.
Okay. All right, do you have what you need at this point?
We do. Does the board feel it's appropriate to set a public hearing so we can gather public comment?
But we can't set a public hearing until we've done our impact assessment.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
next up, we have the Doubleday, pardon me, special use permit for a marijuana dispensary at 2124 Doubleday Avenue. Is the applicant or the representative here at this point? Yes, Mr. Marsicano is going to recuse himself from this project.
Been a busy first day.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, right in.
I'm going to get a very nasty call. I'm going to get a very comment. Yeah. That's not what we wanted to push it. Yeah. You're not the only person. All of it. Okay,
All right.
your name and,
Hello.
hello.
My name is Dan Morelli with SRG Architects, and I'm representing Jason Woods and Michael Davidson in their request for site plan approval and special use permit to operate a New York State licensed cannabis dispensary at 2124 Doubleday Avenue, which is located in a commercial mixed-use district and which is permitted by right with a special use permit, if granted. The pre-existing single-story building currently has 3 commercial tenants: E&A Custom T-Shirts, leasing the north end of the building; Leaf and Fog Smoke Shop, to be renamed Saratoga Vape, leasing the center space; and Rochester Regional Joint Board, leasing the south end of the building. The applicant proposes to convert the current smoke shop into a cannabis dispensary and sell cannabis-related products with no on-site consumption. The existing site currently has a paved parking lot with striping, existing stormwater, domestic water, and sanitary services, as well as ample site lighting. Currently, the paved parking lot has parking for all of the tenants and meets or exceeds the provisions for required parking as outlined in the town zoning law. Upon town approval, the dispensary will be governed by the New York State Office of Cannabis Management, and a special use permit will be renewed every 5 years. For those that don't know, this is an old board and easel. My apologies, everybody before me was so great.
Amanda's got you.
Amanda's got you covered.
Oh, she does. Good. Well, still. Pretty basic. Love the way you guys do it, by the way. One of these days we'll get up there. And I say that sincerely. Since we last met in April of this past year, the applicant has received a provisional license and proximity location protection from Cannabis Management. And I did receive the staff review from Sophia, which was very well done. Thank you. Guess I'll do this here. Main Street is here. There's ample parking around the building. It's a pre-existing site, pre-existing building. This is the
Sir,
T-shirt. Yes.
can you keep using the microphone?
Sorry. Thank you. I meant to do that. The lease, 1,500 square foot lease space on the end of the building is the T-shirt shop. The center space is Leaf and Fog Dispensary or Smoke Shop as it currently stands, which will be converted to the vape shop. And the lease space over here is for the regional board. There's ample parking spaces in front of the building, already striped along the side of the building, with room for expansion along the back side of the building if needed for overflow. There's an existing storage building back here now. We'll put an enclosed refuge area in this location here. And I guess that's all I have for now. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Anybody got any questions?
Just quickly, can you just take us through your interior area and to see if anything's changed there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. It's a smaller dispensary per New York State standards, but basically, the customer would come through the front entry, check in at a check-in area or a POS, and be seated and wait for the name to be called, where they would enter a sales floor in the back area. That process takes less than 10 minutes. That process takes less than 10 minutes. So they get checked in, they get seated, they get called back. There's 3 bud tender stations back here. The secured vault is where the product is stored and passed through a window. The store is locked at all times unless the person in the vault needs to get out for whatever reason. Nobody's allowed in unless they have a right to be in that secured area, which is typically an employee with the license. There's a sally port in the back of the building. Products usually come on a small box truck, delivered through the sally port, checked in, brought into the secured vault area. And there's some stringent requirements on that. This back area, this is called back office area, is basically for an office, a break room, and a bathroom and janitor's closet for the employees only. The customers would come in, get seated, get called in, pick their product, and then exit only through this exit and back out. So there's really not a whole lot of mingling going on in this waiting area. Like I said, when they come in, they come out, exit right out. They can't check back in with their product. We've done about a half dozen of these already. We've got one in North Greenbush, one in Schenectady, and one in Colony. This is one of the smaller ones. We have observed that transactions usually take less than 15 minutes. Usually they're coming in about 8 to 10 minutes.
Any other questions? Okay, so we need to complete the short environmental assessment form and the impact assessment for this. I will read the 11 questions associated with the Part 2 impact assessment. If anybody disagrees with any of my, or has additions to add, stop me and we'll discuss it. Question 1, pardon me, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? I'm saying no. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land? I'm saying no. 3, will the proposed action impair the character and quality of the existing community? I'm saying no. 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? I'm saying no. 5, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? I'm saying no. 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Saying no. 7, will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public wastewater treatment utilities? Saying no for both. 8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? I'm saying no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? I'm saying no. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? I'm saying no. will the proposed action create a hazard or environmental resource on human health? Saying no. Any discussion of those? All right, having found that there will be no significant adverse impacts of the SEA Short Environmental Assessment Form Part 2, I will now entertain a motion for acknowledging that the proposed action will not have any significant adverse environmental impacts, and the chair is authorized to sign the Short Environmental Assessment Form Part 3, indicating that an EIS will not be prepared and a negative declaration is determined.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, please poll the board.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Mandanza?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Hellenic?
Yes.
Chairman Bartow?
Yes. Ms. Marusa, do you have anything to like to offer to us? We've got your memo here.
You're in receipt of my memo, which outlines the sections of the code that this particular use has special considerations for. You are obviously familiar with the use, having just completed a review on a dispensary recently, which prompted us to want to verify that the state had full knowledge of both updated current locations for the proposed dispensaries based on the timeline and the sequence of when proximity protections were issued and provisional licenses were issued. It appears the state is fully aware of the proximity of these two new locations. The only reason we bring it up is obviously because there was a change at such time that you came in before. We had an application at another spot, excuse me. So we just want to verify that there was adequate separation between the two, not to step on OCM's toes, but then we also had to ensure we have the 1,000-foot separation distance requirements from certain prescriptive uses, which we've confirmed. The applicant has provided the information that we needed. And again, the only piece that we would consider that the board carry through is that should they entertain a condition of approval, probably not tonight at such time that they do, but the use would be subject to a special use permit renewal every 5 years. And that we would receive the permanent license issued by the state to be on file with the town clerk.
Anybody have any questions for Sophia? If not, I will entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing for the issuance of a special use permit for a marijuana dispensary at 2124 Doubleday Avenue for December 11th, 2024 at up to 7:15 p.m.
Yes.
7:15 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second? Any further discussion? Not, please poll the board.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Mandanza?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Hellenic?
Yes.
Chairman Bartow?
Yes. Thank you. See you next month.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes. All right, as I noted earlier, the town board has referred amendments to the zoning code, section 8180, regarding highway design standards in the town center. I forwarded each of you an email from Adam Yagelski of Delaware Engineering on October 18th with those regulations, and it proposes changes to section 180 as well as to section 152 on streets and highways and section 154 on subdivision regulations. Pursuant to section 180-81, any proposed amendments to the zoning code must be referred to the planning board for a report and recommendations. Well, our report really only deals with chapter 180 of the code. I also have noted a few changes to chapter 152 and 154. And you should have gotten emailed a memo from Amanda tonight. But I know. You did just get it. So I apologize for that. But I'll quickly highlight what I've said there. Basically, I'm saying that the amendments to Chapter 180 are consistent with the road design standards and dedicated procedures that we've worked out with the town center and more recently with the site plan review of the Milltown Center. The only comment I got at all on this when this was circulated by Adam was a comment with respect to 18039.7 section B, where we specify that the trees to be used in the town center would be little leaf linden. And this comment was that we might want to consider more than one species of tree, and if there ever was an invasive pest or disease that wiped out all our trees, our little leaf lindens. That's something I think we can do more when we do the comprehensive plan update, think about that, but I'm noting it here. It's an interesting point. I think little leaf linden's a pretty tough little tree. But it's just,
It's been brought up before.
yeah,
So
but we might want to do that later on. Then I just highlight that, make sure the town's complying with seeker, which Adam has done that. And they're proceeding as the lead agency on this. I also note that it's important to get the effective date on this correctly because this will affect any project that is not pre-approved on the adoption and effective date of the law. The only thing I can think that's out there is 336 Rowland Street as a major subdivision, which has a pathway and it has a town designated road and a cul-de-sac. So I'm just going to ask Adam to verify that that's not going to get adversely affected because there's no exemption for anything out there. Cisar would be another one, but
we haven't approved.
but the highway standards outside of the town center, I believe, are staying the same. It's the same width, the winged type of approach on them and whatnot. There's a new classification of standards that the planning board's going to have to look at to put the roads in one of 4 classifications. We currently have 2 classifications, town center and non-town center.
I think the only change, so the code previously referenced DOT standards that are no longer exist.
Yes.
So the applicants, including the recent ones, have simply been ignoring that and providing the current standard.
Yeah.
So the folks have been proposing what is in accordance with the current standard, even though the town's code references the old standard.
Yep.
So the pending or approved application should not be affected by this because they all reference the proper standard, not the standard we have in our code.
Yeah.
That we're changing.
Yeah. So, but outside of that, I basically have said, this is fine, it's consistent with the zoning. They're really just taking some specific standards for highways specifications and putting them in where they should be in the highway and streets section of the code. So I'm saying we don't really have on chapter 152, the street and highway specifications, there were a couple of things that I put in there. One, there's an insurance requirement being outlined in there saying that there has to be an endorsed policy conferring coverage. And at the reference by council, we should have an actual designation that the town is additionally insured. Because we've got to have that really clear. We have to have that in a policy that says that we're insured at an amount satisfactory to the town board.
We'll update that
or
language.
underwriter.
Yeah.
So that one has to be there. There were a couple of small typos I pointed out. And then there's section 15228 on sidewalks. And that doesn't say anything about maintenance. And I don't know where we deal with maintenance of sidewalks in the town center or in Milton Center. It's my understanding that snow removal and ice removal is the responsibility of the property owner. That's going to get complicated in Milltown Center. Although, as it's proposed, I'm sure the Samuscots are going to say, we're going to take care of all the sidewalks, but that's not guaranteed going forward.
Right.
Because that property project could get sold. And they might say, well, we're going to have the individual businesses in front of maintain their sidewalk. That's going to be crazy.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So, and what you just said is what typically happens. If things get sold, if it's an actual piece of real property, the person who owns the property is responsible for the sidewalk in front of their business.
Correct.
But when they're leasing these buildings, it's the underlying
And
property.
you got multiple people.
Yeah, it's the underlying property owner. And that comes from state law.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from, is from state law. So we're just not changing any of that.
Yeah.
You would, if you wanted to have somebody other than the underlying property owner operate and maintain the sidewalk, you would have to adopt a different local law saying that.
We would. But they're all, I will say, they're all being proposed in the right of way that's being dedicated to the town.
That's correct. And if you talk to the town highway department, they will say at the end of the day, if improvements need to be made, they end up making those improvements.
Yeah. But the snow removal and ice is gonna be,
Maintenance, yes.
and I guess, I don't know where it is in law or we just do it. If it isn't removed within like 48 hours, we may send somebody out and then kind of
Go.
slap their hand and say, you gotta clean up your
That might
sidewalk.
be in the property maintenance law section.
I don't know,
I
but,
suppose.
but either way, it's something that we probably want to consider down the road.
We'll take a look
and
at that.
Say,
Yep.
what should we be doing here? And then under section 15229, there's statements about driveways. We may want to consider driveway standards or at least a minimum of a curb cut requirement. That basically anytime somebody puts a curb cut in on a town road, they got to come get a permit. And that's even for temporary permits. So it might be for a logging job, it might be for a construction job, it might be for agriculture. But the highway superintendent should know when a curb cut, temporary or permanent, is being proposed. And then
Is that not happening?
I think
You
that
guys
does.
You
it
guys
does.
actually have a section of law 162 that is sidewalk maintenance, and it covers all of these things.
It does, okay.
Yes.
So if that's all clear there, then that's fine. Then under chapter 154, the subdivision of land, I only pointed out that there's a whole section on performance guarantees of what the town, and there's a question I have of what does the town board want for warranties and security? We have typically said cash, because cash is king. It's really hard to cash in a bond or something else. So I don't know, I mean, it says, the language kind of is all over the place, that they could have a surety bond, they could have a check, they could have something else. Do they want to be a little more explicit? But that could get expensive, so you might not always get cash, you might not get it all up front on a big project,
Yeah, I think the idea was to leave a little flexibility there
okay?
and determination on a case-by-case basis, but,
Okay.
because you don't know what you
Yep.
don't know.
And then there's a highway and required infrastructure construction and dedicated policies and procedures, and there's a hold harmless and indemnity agreement. All I'm saying is we should consult the town's insurance underwriter to ensure we have the right coverage, because if you say something different, that's a massive out, and all of a sudden NYMER or the insurance company says, we don't got to cover it, you're on your own. You know, we didn't have it. And in one case, I gave an example here, it didn't have legal defense listed. So they wouldn't pay for our lawyer to represent us. So I would suggest, do we use NYMER in this town?
No, it's a local broker.
We
But
may
we
want to.
can, we know those, we can reach out to them.
Make sure that
That
it's
is-
consistent with what they would want, or that there isn't a massive hole that all of a sudden the town's not
And they've covered the town for decades,
doing that.
so.
So, but take a look at it. I'm going to ask you for a resolution that I work with Bill and get this done by Friday and to the board. If you've got questions tomorrow or Friday morning, send them to me, or Bill, and I'll get this out. I'll get it to Amanda, and Amanda can get it out.
I did have one quick question. Are
Yes.
you essentially saying, because our village code had like actual specified like standards for sidewalks and it was totally outdated. Are you just saying refer to EDA, refer to DOT standards?
We've
Okay.
updated them so that stuff doesn't go out of date, but like we followed, like for the sidewalks, we do have what are the town specifications for sidewalks, but then in conformance with ADA, whatever the current ADA. So we made them more flexible.
Okay, yeah.
The
'cause
prior code reference.
Ours was terrible.
Very specific, right. And just to back up, so the genesis of this actually was not the Milton Center project. It was actually that the town has struggled with the dedication of roads for decades. So the real genesis of doing this work was to clarify the dedication of roads process. And then in addition to that, through some of the projects coming before the planning board, there was an appetite in certain areas of the town to provide some more flexibility for different street sections that give you that boulevard. Like we didn't have a boulevard in there. We didn't have, there's been issues with the section with respect to road, curb, grass, street tree, sidewalk. There's been maintenance issues, so it's clarifying some of those things. So that was really the purpose of this review. So we really appreciate the comments from the board.
And the good thing about that has all been done in a spec book as opposed to the local law. So it's easier to amend a spec book, which you can do by resolution, than it is to go in and re-amend the local law. So that's out there. And in talking to Adam, he said, because I brought up the question, like on Park Boulevard, the spec design had the sidewalk right up to the curb. no space between the curb and the sidewalk. It's like, that's not the way it's done elsewhere in town center when it's not in front of a commercial business or something. Do you want, and he pointed out, he said, we'll still have the flexibility to say, no, we want a 4-foot grass curb. We don't want the street trees or the lights there because they get damaged, but we want the space, even though the section doesn't show it at that. So we will have discretion in any one project. So remember when, at least I guess Cisar was a PDD, they had a sidewalk in it. We said put one in it, which we can't do now because it's just a residential subdivision. But we would have the flexibility to say, do you want it right up to the edge of the road? Do you not want it right up to the edge of the road? Let's see where we go with that. So the guidance, even though it's in the spec book in one way, is still not completely binding on us. So, because we can't anticipate every project we're going to see. So, all right, I will work on this. If I don't hear from anybody. Yes, oh yeah, I need a motion that the chair be authorized to work on, with council, on finalizing the report and provide our report and recommendations to this town board.
I actually have one more question.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't belabor it, but what happens when, for example, this fixture model is no longer available? Is it going to be a
That's
variance
going to
or
be now in the
code
spec
change?
book, and you're going to have to, we'll have
That's
to get a
what
new
you're putting
spec.
into the spec book, okay.
That's in the spec. Well, later, no, I take that back. That's still in the law. We would have to amend our zoning law.
So could it just say for now, pick that model or something else approved by the planning board?
Yeah, yeah.
That's something
add
to
that.
handle
Good.
now.
You know, one of the things that's kind of interesting, like your current model is not dark sky compliant. So when we tell people they're going to do dark sky compliant, your current model that's in there is not. So
Well, that should be fixed right now.
we are, we're fixing that. But so you want some flexibility?
Yeah,
We were
if it's
thinking
no
we could
longer available,
So then you would amend it, right? But what we didn't want to do was put multiple, you want consistency
Yep.
for the fixture types,
Yep.
right? So that was why we picked one, right? We picked a
Mhm.
dark sky compliant that matches as many of the other ones as you have.
Mhm.
That's dark sky compliant, so.
that's why I added or.
But that didn't get
by
changed
planning
in
board.
section 180 then, chapter 180. It's not, the
Oh,
lighting
okay.
standard is still there, and the same in, I think it's the same in 152, right?
Okay, all
It
right.
goes back to what we had.
Can you add that?
Yeah, I just
do
put a
that?
thing
Okay,
down on my note,
great.
and I will add something in
Yep.
there.
Okay, thank you.
And then you gotta always think forward. We do not have, again, there's a maintenance issue with lights.
There's a
Each individual property
big
owner
maintenance issue with lights.
supposed, there's no lighting district. We probably should have a sidewalk district, a lighting district, and a street tree district.
and drainage districts.
Well, we could, that's a whole different, stormwater drainage districts could be those two. But that's another,
Those are town board actions. We've talked to them a little bit about those, and I think we're sort of trying to,
bite
work
off.
our way there
Okay.
over time.
So a motion to finalize this with council and send it to the board.
I'll make the motion.
That, second?
I'll second it with no further questions.
Okay. No further discussion, please poll the board.
Mr. Marsicano,
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Ms. Van Danza?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Ms. Marin?
Yes.
and Chairman Barto?
Yes, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those signify by saying aye. Opposed? None. We're adjourned. Oof. It's a long one.